morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order, please. This is a crowd in the holiday spirit. Everybody wants to talk this morning, and that's a great thing. Welcome, everyone. This is our quarterly meeting, our final for this calendar year 2019, and we have indeed had a great year on many fronts. Chancellor and I have been at a couple of meetings this week. One that the Gates Foundation and SCORE put together to talk about pathways in education, and so a lot of our colleagues in K through 12 and many of our presidents and others were at that. It was a great session on Tuesday. Yesterday we started the TBR strategic planning process once again, and Dr. Deaton will fill us in a little bit more about that. But I wanted to mention it this morning just to say, once again, being at both of those meetings reminded me of how much we have to be proud of here in Tennessee, and it's the folks in the back of this room who are making it happen. The Gates Foundation folks love coming to Tennessee and made that very clear throughout the day to be a part of everything happening here. Our colleagues from Achieving the Dream, two of them were with us yesterday, and Dennis Jones, who many of you know, who has provided a great counsel and advice to this board and our system throughout the years, was with us, and both of them reflected on all of the positive things going on in Tennessee. We all know there's a tremendous amount of work before us in 2020 and beyond, but I just wanted to make the point that we are indeed still telling a national story of what's happening in higher ed in Tennessee, and just wanted to say thank you. You can pat yourselves on the back and then go back to work because there is a lot more to do, but it's very exciting. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes, if I might. I want to once again recognize and welcome back to the Board of Regents our interim general counsel, Christine Modisher. Thank you for coming back and sharing your time and counsel with us. You've already been invaluable. Thank you. And second of all, to our presidents, if you have not gone up to the third floor yet to have your photograph made, the folks are still up there, so feel free to come and go in the course of this meeting. When you get off the elevator, you'll go around as if you're going to the hallway where the chancellor's office is, that first conference room there on the right. So let's get that business taken care of, and I hope all the board members took care this morning. We'll do a group photo immediately after our meeting as well. And then one important piece of news this morning, Robert Pepper has completed his master's degree. Tell us about it.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to say about it, I guess. I don't know. Several of you I've probably talked to about it. I started that about the same time that I started on the board, so it's been just over a year, about a year and 3 months. And I do want to say that I think being on this board during the course of that really affected the mindset that I had in working on that degree. I think it really, I don't know how to explain it, but it really, I think, doing this at the same time gave me a perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise, that I think helped me to get through the whole process a little faster and kind of stay focused on it. I don't know if that's it for me right now. I suspect that I'm going to sit on that and not to go any further. To go after my doctorate at this point would be a lot of money just to make my students call me Dr. Pepper. I don't know if that's worth it or not. But who knows what's in the class. So for right now, I'm just going to enjoy not having any more homework to do. So that's it. But thank you for the recognition.
Thank you. Our heartfelt congratulations.
Thank you.
It's very exciting. Let me just say as we get started here, I have bronchitis, and poor Chancellor Tidings has now listened to me for 3 days in a row. If at some point I leave the room because the cough just overwhelms me, Regent Duckett is on notice to take over and keep things going here, so just FYI, so pay attention. But hopefully that won't happen this morning, but just so you know. It is also with great pleasure that we recognize our newest regent this morning, Weston Wamp, here to represent the 3rd Congressional District of Tennessee. Weston was appointed earlier in the fall by Governor Lee, and he's been with us for his orientation. Missed our November committee meetings, but for good reason. He and his wife were brave enough to take 3 young children to Prague. How did that go?
It was awesome.
Okay, good.
I'm here.
Okay, excellent. That's great. Weston, I know you've done so much. You're entrepreneurial. You're a communications specialist. You're advising on our American political system and how to make things better. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I assume I pressed this button before I talked.
You do.
That wasn't part of my orientation. Well, I'm a dad of three who are all under 5, and so there's a lot of explaining. I was telling Chancellor Tidings earlier, a lot of explaining about what 2 weeks means. Yesterday I got home from a work trip, and I explained to him we're 2 weeks from Christmas, and my 4-year-old had a lot of questions about what 2 weeks means. So that's a lot of my bandwidth is prepping those three. I did have a unique opportunity almost right out of UT to play a role in, I think, the rise of entrepreneurship in Chattanooga. As Chattanooga established itself as a startup hub, was one of the founders of an organization that ended up investing in probably 30 companies in our region, and then raised a small venture capital fund that is focused in the transportation industry, and moved on, as Emily mentioned, a couple years ago to working on some issues between Tennessee and Washington that I'm really passionate about: ethics reform, good government reforms. Obviously, there's a lack of confidence. I think, regardless of your political stripes, a lack of confidence in a lot of the ways that business is done in Washington, and so being able to play a role as a young reformer, and then as I've shared with Emily, and would love to talk to some of you guys about in 2020. I'm preparing to launch my own national nonprofit that I've been working on for several months. But my life has more or less been between kind of entrepreneurship and politics, and I have a real profound appreciation and gratefulness to have been appointed to work alongside all of you. And in my first couple campus visits, I told them with some pride that, maybe with the exception of Mark, I wanted them to know that I had frankly asked to have the opportunity to serve alongside you, and in that sense, am maybe the first person to try to become a regent in this paradigm where we serve the 2-year schools in Tennessee. Most of you, joined. Not all of you, but most of you joined in a season when it was a little different. But I just have tremendous optimism about the future of our 40 colleges, and I have absolutely no reason to believe that we can't set a model for the state, and look forward to playing a small role in that.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Thank you and welcome. So well put. Sanja, let's make it official and call the roll.
Thank you, I'd be glad to. Governor Lee, Regent Apple,
Here.
Regent Burdine,
Here.
Regent Dollar,
Here.
Regent Duckett,
Here.
Regent Gill,
Here.
Regent Goldsmith,
Here.
Regent Green,
Here.
Regent Hatch,
Here.
Commissioner Hatcher,
Here.
Regent Krause, Regent Pepper,
Here.
Regent Prescott,
Here.
Vice Chair Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Schwinn, Regent Shockey, Regent Varlin, Regent Wamp, Regent White. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. You have in our information, we received the minutes from our regular quarterly board meeting of September 20, and then our special called meeting on October 31. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to those minutes? And if not, we will call for a motion to approve them. Thank you, Regent Varlin. A second? Thank you, Regent Prescott. Any discussion? Hearing none, this requires simply a voice vote. All in favor? Oh, you look like you're going to say something. Okay, you're just ready to approve. Okay. All in favor of approving our minutes from these 2 past meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The Chancellor's interim report is also in our board material. Chancellor Tidings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The interim action report was included in the material sent to all board members prior to our meeting today. This report constitutes a record of business transacted by the Office of the Chancellor since the previous quarterly meeting of the board. Madam Chair, pending any questions, I recommend the board's approval of the report of interim action.
Any questions or comments on the Chancellor's interim report? And if not, we will need a motion to approve. Thank you, Regent Burdine. Thanks, Regent Apple. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the Chancellor's interim report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. I will now call on Regent Hatch, who served as our interim audit chair on November 19, to present the minutes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. The Audit Committee met in a regular session on November 19th to review and recommend approval of the following items: internal state and miscellaneous audit reports, annual audits and expenses for the Chancellor and Presidents, system-wide internal audit updates, fiscal year 2020 revised audit plans, salaries and staffing for the Office of System-Wide Internal Audit, and salaries and budgets for internal auditors. As interim committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the November 19th, 2019 meeting of the Audit Committee as presented.
Thank you, Regent Hatch. We need a second. Thank you, Regent Green. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, this does require a roll call vote. Sandra?
Regent Apple,
Aye.
Regent Burdine,
Aye.
Regent Dollar, Regent Duckett,
Aye.
Regent Gill,
Aye.
Regent Green, Regent Hatch,
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher,
Aye.
Regent Pepper,
Aye.
Regent Prescott,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Shockey, Regent Varlin, Regent Wong. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Regent Varlin, the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. Tell us about it.
Thank you.
Thank
Actually,
you.
it was a whole lot of fun.
Oh,
But I'm going to tell you about it. So the Tennessee Board of Regents Awards for Excellence in Philanthropy is a unique designation. It is given only to the most deserving and devoted philanthropists who generously support institutions throughout the TBR system. Today I'm honored to recognize 2 TBR Regents Award recipients who are outstanding East Tennessee community partners and East Tennessee Economic Council members. We call that ETEC. The recipients are the Oak Ridge National Lab, and nominated by Roane State Community College with support from Pellissippi State, and Oak Ridge Associated Universities, nominated by Pellissippi State and supported by Roane State. Both of these awards were presented August the 2nd at the East Tennessee Economic Council meeting. We'll start with Roane State. Since 2000, the Oak Ridge National Lab has been managed by UT Patel LLC. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, UT is the University of Tennessee, and it's in partnership with Patel, and they manage the Oak Ridge National Lab. And from the beginning of their stewardship, they have made significant contributions to Roane State Foundation in support of academic programs and students at Roane State Community College. And I'm going to stop here and say that our own Chris Whaley has been the president of the East Tennessee Economic Council and has done a tremendous amount of work with that organization. So it began when UT Patel made their library resources available to both students and faculty to improve the quality and diversity of materials available in their educational journey. In that first year, scientific equipment was gifted in the amount of $23,000 in support of the college's educational programs. Then in 2008, Roane State received a $100,000 contribution from UT Patel in support of the 64,000 square foot, 3-story technology and health sciences building on the Oak Ridge campus, which houses numerous classrooms, offices, and technology-related programs. Then in 2011, UT Patel supported the Rural Community STEM Initiative with $10,000 initial gift to seed the creation of hands-on science activities for middle school students across the Roane State service area. This is known as Lab in a Box, offered materials and educational opportunities in biology, geology, chemistry, robotics, and physics. These kits were developed by Roane State faculty. Most recently, UT Patel has supported Roane State's unique middle college program with scholarship dollars totaling $119,000 since its inception in 2015. Roane State is honored to recognize UT Patel for the support they have given to the college and the students. Thank you on behalf of the Board of Regents. And now for Pellissippi State remarks. We are honored to present the second Regents Award to Oak Ridge Associated Universities, nominated by Pellissippi State and supported by Roane State. Throughout our relationships with ORAU, they have demonstrated a strong commitment and support for STEM education and STEM workforce initiatives. They began providing generous financial support to Pellissippi State in 1992. Additionally, ORAU has voluntarily contributed countless hours of research and specialized expertise to make a positive impact in East Tennessee communities. ORAU and Pellissippi State Community College are shaping the next generation of the region's scientific and technical workforce. A few examples of ORAU's engagement with Pellissippi State include the Regional Middle School Math Competition, the Advanced Manufacturing Internship Program, and the Bill Haslam Center for Math and Science. For additional comments, I would like to ask Roanoke State Community College President Chris Whaley and Pellissippi State College President Dr. Anthony Wise to the podium for additional comments.
Thank you very much, Regent, Madam Vice Chair, Chancellor, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize two institutions in East Tennessee that have done so much that time really does not permit us to tell you all the ways that they have been involved. You've heard many of them, particularly for us with Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the premier national laboratory in the country. It is such a blessing and honor for us to be able to work with them, not only in the ways that you've heard and the resources, monetary-wise, that they have provided time and time again, but also in other ways, the Lab in a Box program. They have provided engineers to go out and talk to students about how the learning in math and science and other STEM areas, how that is practically necessary and going to be useful to them in their future careers, which is great. They have supported us in a number of ways. Giving one example, our cyber defense program is built on curriculum that they helped us develop, and then they have hired a number of our graduates to be there as employees at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. ORAU likewise has provided help with our Lab in a Box. They've connected us with the partnership universities that are a part of the Oak Ridge Associated University system. So these are two real icons as far as institutions that continually provide us help, not only, again, in the very important monetary ways, but also just the opportunity to collaborate with them day in and day out. And so it's a true honor. Dr. Watts.
Thank you, Chancellor Tiding, and members of the board. What President Whaley said is very much true about our relationship with these great organizations. We're fortunate to have an institution like Roanoke State where we can partner with so many key organizations through this work in Oak Ridge. Both the National Lab and the Associated Universities, again, provide such great opportunities for young people who are thinking about the sciences. So for us, it's through our middle school math competition and our science bowl that allows them to begin thinking about it, what it means to explore those disciplines as possible career options. And then they provide great support for our students while they're on campus in terms of a variety of internship and learning experiences while they're college students. And then just additional support for our facilities. We're grateful that both organizations are partners in our new Bill Haslam Center for Math and Science, and hope that will allow us to even expand even further the great workforce opportunities in STEM in our region. So thank you for making this recognition possible for two organizations that do such great work for the community colleges that serve this part of East Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to add that, every part of our state has special things that they are very blessed to have. And for us, having a national lab in our neighborhood that is the premier national lab, and their willingness to share and work and make our community in East Tennessee better as well as the rest of the world, since they are the defense of our country is there. It is really an unbelievable opportunity. And Roanoke State and Pellissippi State and all the other institutions in that area are doing a really good job of connecting with them and using that resource. They aren't the only ones, but we're very grateful for that. So that's my report to either Regent Duckett or Vice Chair Reynolds. Doesn't matter. Thank you.
Well done. I'm sorry I missed a good portion of it because it's very impressive what happens in Oak Ridge with those two institutions. So well done. Weston Watt knows Oak Ridge Wetland, too. Exactly. It is time now for the Chancellor's report, and I think you're going to take 2 bites at this apple this morning, correct?
I am. Thank you very much. You will notice that on the agenda, the first item has to do with an update on our Workforce Development System Steering Committee. Dr. Jeff McCord is going to come in. He is unable to be with us until 11:30 to give that report. So when he comes in, we will pause where we are in the agenda and go back to my report so he can give that update for us. A few other items that I do want to make sure everyone is aware of, some things that we're particularly excited about, is that 2 weeks ago I met with the EMS Initial Education Committee and with the new state director for emergency management services here in Tennessee to discuss our current partnerships and our marketing efforts to promote EMT and AEMT and paramedic programs throughout the state. The Joint Government Operations Rule Review Committee recently approved a rule to allow high school seniors who seek admissions into an EMT, AEMT, or paramedic education program to do so if they will turn 18 years of age within 90 days of completing the program. This is really good news for us because now we can encourage students to go ahead and go through the training that are close to that age and be ready to be employed when they reach the age of 18. After a recommendation from the Initial Education Committee of EMS, the EMS full board voted to create a recruitment and retention committee focused on closing the workforce gap in this area. The Tennessee Board of Regents will be partnering with the EMS board to help with marketing efforts to attract more individuals to the EMS realm. Another initiative that I'm particularly proud of that we've been working on for several months that started as an initiative with the Department of Economic Development has to do with the creation of a new digital media academy for the Tennessee Board of Regents. Nashville State has graciously stepped up to the table to be our founding college in the initial establishment of the Digital Media Academy. This will include both credit and non-credit programs. And while Nashville State has agreed to be the initial project, it will in future years be a combination project for several of our TBR community colleges that will collaborate on a state-of-the-art academy to meet the needs of the 21st century workforce focused on animation, art, editing, game design, and industry-specialized programming simulations. When we started down this road with ECD, ECD brought several very well-known individuals to us that operate in this animation realm, and I will tell you that one of the people that is going to be coming to Tennessee to work with us on this is the actual creator of Yoda. All of you know who Yoda is, so we're really excited to have somebody of that caliber joining our forces to help us make this a premier program for the state of Tennessee. We anticipate that we will have people from all over the world that will want to come to Tennessee to take part in this. I also want to take a moment to update you on 2 SACS on-site committee visits that were held in the past several months. Those were at Run State and Volunteer State. Volunteer State site visit was October 7th through the 10th. The reaffirmation committee was part of the process of their overall reaffirmation of accreditation. The report of the committee presents the professional judgment of the reaffirmation committee made in accordance with the principles of accreditation and the foundations for quality enhancement. At the conclusion of the visit, the committee had 0 recommendations. The report will be reviewed by a committee on compliance and reports, and a final decision will be sent to SACS Board of Trustees at their June 2020 meeting. The committee also had no recommendations regarding the Volunteer State Quality Enhancement Plan, or their QEP, which many of you have heard us talk about, which targets their student first-year experience. And with Rhone State Community College, they hosted their SACS on-site reaffirmation committee visit on October 15th through the 18th. Several committee members visited the Morgan and Fentress County off-site campuses, the Clinton Higher Ed Center, and the Training Center at Oak Ridge High School. All teaching locations were approved by the Commission since their last reaffirmation in 2010. Rhone State's Quality Enhancement Plan, again our QEP, is to integrate collaborative and project-based learning into the curriculum and engaging the committee and the campus community in various conversations throughout their visit. Rhone State also had 0 recommendations. Congratulations to both of these colleges for exceptional visits. TCATs also have some good news in that arena, that we're celebrating 45 years of accreditation at their national organization. At the COE annual meeting, which was held last month in Reno, Nevada, the following TCATs were recognized and celebrated for their 45 years of continuous accreditation: TCAT Crump, TCAT Dixon, and TCAT Paris. Congratulations to those three colleges. At this time, I'd like to call on Russ Deaton, Dr. Deaton, for his report on research findings on student success for us.
Vice Chair Reynolds, Dr. Tidings, members of the board, it's good to be with you today. I want to build off of many of the topics we discussed at the board retreat back a few months ago, as well as the committee chairs meeting where we talked about Reconnect, and give you a sense of basically a preview of coming attractions. We've got quite a few very nascent research projects underway, many of which are connected to the strategic plan you'll hear about later, and I wanted to kind of give you a sense of the questions we're asking, why we're asking them, and a little bit about some of the things that we are seeing. And feel free, of course, to ask me questions as we go. A lot of these projects are focused on the space that TBR really uniquely is an expert in, that K-12 to college pipeline space. And so I'm going to show you some projects that have to do with dual enrollment, some high school to college trends, learning support, etc., as well as some new tools that we've been developing, some of which you're familiar with. We've shown you before dashboards and profiles, very public-facing data tools, but also some additional internal tools we've been developing that help increase the capacity of our colleges. Much of this, of course, is in part a function of our ability to generate some external funding to bring on additional analytic capacity here to do a lot of these efforts. First is dual enrollment, a topic we've talked about quite a bit. And some of this data you have seen before. This is a 10-year snapshot of our dual enrollment levels across TBR, the community colleges. And as we have talked about before, we have seen dramatic increases in those levels the last 10 years or so, roughly doubling the dual enrollment counts for our schools. This is, as you remember, an outcome in the funding formula, so this is a key part of what our colleges are focused on. In some schools, the dual enrollment numbers are about a third of their overall enrollment, so this is a big part of the pie for many of our schools. You've also probably heard, though, that in particular at the retreat, enrollment levels the last 10 years at TBR are fairly flat. So if you kind of then take account of the dual enrollment numbers you see here, but for that, our enrollment's declining. So this has really buoyed the enrollment numbers at our schools across the system the last 10 years or so. A very good trend to see, and this is one that's familiar to us. What is new about this, though, is what we can now do with the course level data we have, and I apologize for the screen cutting off some of the text here. What you're looking at on the right is, I guess you'd call this a donut chart of the courses taken in dual enrollment space across our colleges. And there are 3 years that are the concentric circles here, but focus on just the color scheme you see to the left. For instance, the blue courses are English courses, comprising roughly a third or so of all dual enrollment activity at our community colleges. The red is math, the salmon, I guess, color is history. Roughly 3/4 of all dual enrollment activity is in the general education space, which is intuitive for us, but we've never heretofore been able to really dig in and look at precisely what courses students are taking and where. And this is, as you can see, fairly stable over time. What's also different about this, though, is the success rates in these courses. We see about a 90% success rate across these courses, which, by the way, holds across the ACT preparation spectrum. Even for those students who are marginally or somewhat underprepared, they still succeed at fairly high rates in dual enrollment courses. You also see some of the changes in the modality. We see many more courses now offered in either an online or a hybrid format, which is a change from prior years. More context here too, the average ACT for these students is about a 24 ACT. These tend to be very well-prepared students, many of whom end up going to a university. We convert roughly 1/4 of these students into full-time freshmen at our campuses. So the key here is our ability to now dig into the course-taking patterns of dual enrollment students, find out exactly what they're taking, how they're doing, and how that behavior then translates or doesn't translate to enrollment at our colleges. Secondly, thinking a lot about the K-12 to college pipeline. You've heard Dr. Lemming and others in the past talk about strategic enrollment management, sort of a companion to the Achieving the Dream work, thinking about how we more effectively become an open access system and really think strategically about enrollments and retention and success. So one of the tools we're now building is a dashboard that brings together many of the disparate data sources that inform strategic enrollment management. So for instance, we now have a dashboard that looks at the K-12 to college pipeline and asks or answers questions such as, take a certain high school, Northside High School, where I went to high school. How many of those students go to college? Where do they go? How many of a certain school's population comes from that high school, and are they attending the school in their service area or elsewhere? We've always had disparate pieces of that information, but never before have we been able to put it all together in a format where an admissions counselor or a dean or department head can look quickly inside that data to detect where the enrollment patterns are, where the gaps are, where advisors need to put more emphasis on recruiting students. It allows for a more granular look at the K-12 to college pipeline than we've had before. Second one in this space is a familiar topic, learning support. As we know, many of our freshmen come to us being underprepared in math and English, and TBR's put a lot of effort over the years in thinking about ways to address that problem. Everything from the sales program at high school to co-requisite remediation when they get to college. What you're looking at here is the ACT math subscores for our freshmen, and what the y-axis is the percentage of those students who have that subscore. So for instance, where that graph peaks at about a 16 ACT, roughly 16% of the freshmen have that ACT score, etc. So therefore, if you look at all those students who are not meeting the readiness benchmark, who are underprepared for college, to the left of that red line, that's about 62% of our freshmen have a math ACT score below a 19. That is critical because that's the cutoff, of course, for needing learning support and going into co-requisite remediation. This is one of the areas in public policy, and I tell my students this a lot, where oftentimes the diagnostics are easier than the therapeutics. It's easier to understand a problem than to know what to do about it. This is the opposite. TBR has thought a lot about what to do about the phenomenon, sales, co-rec, and less about the diagnostic tool. Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Berryman have schooled me on the fact that perhaps for about 2 or 3 decades, I suppose, we've had the same diagnostic cut score to indicate learning support. And the question really is that the right one? Are there additional metrics we could utilize to determine whether we're having too few or too many students placed into learning support or not? So essentially, this is an effort to understand the diagnostic tool better so that we more properly place students in a learning support course. Let me stress here too for presidents, this again is an early effort. We're not about to bring a recommendation to the board soon to change this. This is a research effort to understand a phenomenon really more than anything. Lastly in this section, you are familiar, I'm sure, with many of the job projections which look at the growth of STEM occupations in Tennessee, which are aggressively growing and many of which we need greater degree production to meet those demands. It's also true, though, of course, you remember from the board retreat, overall degree production in Tennessee has gone up quite dramatically the last 10 years, about 80%. However, STEM degree production is fairly flat over that time. The growth has been in the AAs and AS degrees, the transfer credentials, which is a good place to be, but we've not grown STEM production. STEM at TBR really is a function of 2 primary areas for the most part. It's IT, computer information sciences, and the allied health area, nursing. Again, those credentials are more or less flat over time. So what we're digging into now, and some of this is via information from the P20 system, is how do we better align high school students' interests, capacities with our programs and with what the labor industry needs. That alignment is a crucial aspect of what TBR does. Digging into the programmatic production wages of these students will allow us to make better decisions and judgments about where that alignment is falling short and where it's being effective right now. Finally, in this section, and you've begun accustomed, I hope, to seeing us talk about graduation rates using the following chart, a cumulative look at graduation rates, taking a cohort of freshmen, in this case the 2013 cohort, And looking at them over time, the x-axis is a count of semesters. It's taking fall, spring, summer, being 3 semesters. If you look at that number 9 on the x-axis, that's 3 years. That's your 3-year graduation rate, which most organizations sort of stop at and don't analyze graduation rates beyond that. We, of course, are now taking those graduation rates out until they stop. And so you see this one running out 6 years or so, and you've seen the growth in those grad rates over time. But crucial to the Achieving the Dream work, crucial to TBR strategic planning efforts, is the equity component of those graduation rates. What you see here is the breakdown of the grad rate by race and gender. And there's a thick black line in the middle that gives the overall grad rate for that cohort. Again, at 3 years, it's about 20%. But this now breaks that down by race and by gender. And it shows a couple of things that we have to reckon with that we've talked to you about before. We still have very persistent gaps, particularly for our black students, their grad rates are improving, but those gaps still remain. We also have some successes, though. If you look at the Hispanic women line, which I think is the solid red line, that is the second highest performing demographic we have over 6 years of all of our students. It's not a large population. It's probably about 3% of our freshmen, but nonetheless, they have always performed well and continue to do so. This information is crucial for us to talk to campuses about. They know this data, of course, but to help them think through how they address these challenges, which again are crucial to ATD, to our SIM work, and to TBR strategic planning efforts. Finally, many of the topics we've talked about today, we've talked about historically. We're developing kind of a library, if you will, on our website of white papers, of memos, policy briefs on these and other subjects. These are, in many cases, very digestible policy memos. They're about 3 pages. They try to get at the heart, the essence of the issue with data across issues, dual enrollment, the STEM work, the equity issue, graduation rates, of course, Promise, Reconnect, etc. These are publicly available. They are out there for everyone to see and consume, and hopefully will be a resource not only for our schools, but for researchers around the U.S. And finally, you've heard us talk about data information and trying to get more data more accessible to more people to put to greater use. You've seen our dashboards, you've seen our college profiles, but we're also developing additional tools that are a little more internal that allow our campuses to better understand their own data, to allow it to be more securely shipped to TBR and back. This is more of an internal institutional research-facing tool that is trying to, again, allow campuses to understand more about how their data looks and how they can begin to more strategically make use of it. This is an effort that, again, occurs mainly behind the scenes. The profiles and dashboard are kind of public and they're high profile, but just as important are the internal tools that the IR community relies on that TBR has been building the last couple of years, again, to help us close the feedback loop with them and help them better understand their data. Again, Vice Chair Reynolds and Chancellor Tidings, this is a preview of things to come. We hope to bring some of these topics back to you for a more in-depth discussion later, a la Reconnect a few weeks ago, but we appreciate your time so far this morning, and happy to answer questions, of course.
Any questions or comments? Regent Gill, I know this is very close to you.
Why did you look at me when you?
Because I just knew.
Well, I'm really impressed, and I'm having a hard time reconciling all this good work with the fact that Russ has 2 Vanderbilt degrees. I knew you were expecting that.
Mr. Earl. 2 from UT as well, though, just for the record. So.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Well, maybe that's the answer to my question. I've got several questions, and you and I can talk about them later. They're just general, or we can do it now, whatever works best for you.
Your prerogative.
Okay, so in the dual enrollment, are we seeing higher graduation rates from the students that do come to the community colleges from dual enrollment?
We do, and again, that population overall is just better prepared, and so as grad rates naturally break down by ACT score, because those students have higher ACT scores, generally they are better prepared. The question that sort of really flummoxes us sometimes is it because they had dual enrollment or because they were already well prepared and they just at the same time also took dual enrollment? Is that a cause or just a co-occurring incident? So that's the hardest part to tease out.
Good question. What are we doing from a dual enrollment standpoint in the TCATs?
That's an area of growth. There's already a lot of really great work going on at the TCATs and dual enrollment. I think as our K-12 partners think about how to ramp up their own EPSOs, early post-secondary opportunities, a lot of them are looking to TCATs. That's where a lot of the demand is coming. And to be very frank too, that's a market that we sort of have a monopoly on. We do that really well, CTE, across community colleges and TCATs too. Universities don't compete with us there. And so that's an area I think that you'll see a lot of growth in, and there's a lot of great efforts from folks behind me to ramp that up even more so than it has been in the past.
Right. What's the source of the data from the high school data? The dashboard high school data. What's the source of the data?
It's a lot of our own internal data, like
Right.
students, what county and high school they're from, but also K-12 data, much of which is already kind of publicly available.
Okay, so you're not going into P20 for any of that.
Not for that. I'll look. Yeah, I see shaking of heads. So not for that. No.
Okay. Talk about sales for a second. How much penetration do we have from that program?
Do about 15,000 students a year. Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Dins in the room, check my math here. About 15,000 students a year. So a good proportion of students who come to TBR will have experienced that treatment, if you will. Of course, we're limited by funding. I mean, we max out, and we get about $3.4 million, I think is the number for sales every year. Almost all of that goes directly into the program. So we can ramp up as funding is available. But it's around 15,000 students now, and again, that's from a pilot of a few hundred just about 5 years ago.
And is the program in all of our community colleges, or is it concentrated in just a few from a test standpoint?
Well, all community colleges have students who experienced sales. Sales is foundationally in the high school. It's not in every high school, obviously, but again, we are hoping to ramp that up more, funding being available.
Okay. On the high demand jobs, what's the source of your categorizing of high demand jobs? Is that coming from the LEAP report?
The LEAP report, yes, sir. Yeah, and we're using kind of the commonly accepted definitions for STEM and high demand, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay. Hispanic women, why are they doing better?
I don't know. I really don't know.
One of the things in business that we always tend to mess up is we tend to focus on what's not working instead of looking for answers in what is working.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's really encouraging.
It's an intriguing finding, and we're hoping to learn more about why that's occurring.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, Dr. Dayton. One of the things that Regent Gill made me think about when we're talking about sales, are we still primarily talking about math?
Exclusively. There was a small
Yeah.
English pilot, but it's basically it's a math program. Yes.
Yeah, that's a little bit, and I don't think that's our fault, but I think that's a little bit disappointing because we had thought we would move into English, which is the other real barrier for
correct.
students. And sales works, that model works, so we can talk about another time that. I wanted to mention and this is not necessarily a question, but a statement that I think we need to continue to think about. I'm happy that we're looking at our graduation rates and continuing to follow students through the 6 years. But isn't it correct that we're still judged on, or our data that comes out publicly is still about our 3-year graduation rate?
Most organizations, yes, will publish a 3-year rate. Now, of course, THEC will publish a 6-year rate for us because they allow for students who transfer to complete that bachelor's degree.
Okay.
Still, they will then credit that success back to the freshman class from which they came. But most things you will see will quote 3 years and they'll stop at 3 years, yes.
Well, that's something, again, part of what we do as a body that is a body of influence. When you were talking about Dr. Hamilton saying, or looking at the fact of whether 19 is the proper cut rate for remediation, I think we need to continue to talk to those entities that publish the 3-year graduation rate for community college and say, is this the right thing to publish? Because we know that particularly in community colleges with so many non-traditional students, that 3 years is, in my judgment, not the right rate to publish. And we know, as we're looking at the charts, how many more students do graduate over that period of time from the 3 to the 6 years, and probably more. You have to have a cutoff part, certainly. But it seems like that part of our communication about who we are, what we are, and what we do, and who we serve has to include the fact that we are adding credentialed adults in our community and to our economy, but they don't always and many times don't get there in 3 years, especially when they're coming to community colleges with other work issues, children issues, all those kinds of things. So, you know, we have young people that are doing political things now. We need to talk to folks and begin to say, this is not, we need to look at this more broadly, I
Sure.
think.
Yeah.
So,
Well, amen to all that, and recall 2 facts as well, one of which from the board retreat. Over half of the graduates in any given year that walk across our stages were never a first-time freshman that we analyzed in those grad rates anyway. They transferred in, they were part-timers, they were not right out of high school. So much of what we do is not captured by, grad rate's a good metric for who it measures. It's not a good metric as a proxy for institutional performance. And also too, I say luckily I guess, but graduate is not an outcome in the formula, it's just degree production. But I agree with Regent Prescott, communicating about that's very important.
not an outcome in the formula, but it certainly moves public opinion
Very much.
about what we're doing and our success.
Very much.
And I'm not one to make excuses, because I think honestly in education we've done that before too much. But this is a reality in our niche of what is higher education. And I'm just happy that the adults that are coming in, whether it takes them 4, 5, 6, or 10 years, that they're still being able to get the credentials that they need to get a better job.
I'll just add a postscript before turning it back to the Chancellor that Dr. Wise made the point in our meeting yesterday on graduation rates, Regent Prescott, that, and others who were at the SACS meeting can confirm this as well, that from a federal perspective, grad rates were a big piece of the conversation at that SACS meeting. So you're right, it is the public barometer and what we are pushed on. You're absolutely correct.
It's a rookie question, but what keeps us from, for our own purposes, to your point, if one of our objectives is to communicate accurately with the public what we're doing, what we're trying to do, what keeps us from defining in our own terms what success looks like? Because it is completely different than I think how the newspaper reader thinks about a graduation rate. But a lot of times the graduation rate that most people read about is a high school graduation rate, and this is infinitely more complicated than what even I, before studying these things for a few months, would have thought about. What keeps us from saying, okay, there's several different forms of success. At the end of the day, when we bring a student in, we're trying to take them to a successful place that can be defined many different ways within a community college system.
Yeah. Short answer is nothing. And part of what you see from that is our effort to begin to push that conversation, Regional WAMP, in the direction we think it ought to go philosophically. At the retreat, which I know you weren't on the board yet, but we discussed a few ideas for how we might reconceptualize success. And part of it, too, is the way, think about the promise work we do. When we quote a success rate to you, it is having graduated, still enrolled, pursuing a degree, or successfully transferred. All that's combined into an overall success rate that's probably more holistic than just the pure graduation rate. So short answer is nothing. Of course, we're also a bit of a lone voice in that wilderness because the bulk of the commentariat and the policy landscape nationally still focuses a lot on that traditional metric.
And I think, Regional, one of the things that sort of the die was cast about for us was Drive 55. I mean, the goal for higher education is now 55% of our workforce with some form of certificate or degree. And that may or may not be the best way to go. But, the policy of higher education has been set by that one metric pretty much for the last 5 or 6 years. And so getting out from under that is a little bit of a challenge at this point.
Thank you. And again, let me just say that graduation rate, if you all remember that Russ is talking about, that comes out at a national level, is first-time, full-time students only. And that doesn't include someone who's had dual enrollment courses. That doesn't include somebody that took a course at UT and decided to come to us. That knocks them out. So that's why it's a national measure, and that's why we have difficulty in disputing what our real success rate is.
Right. Well, and my point was as much a public relations one as anything, and that is just that in our annual communications with the public, that we clarify, hey, here's the national standard. We think it's broken, by the way. Here's how we measure success. Because as Chairwoman Reynolds pointed out to me during orientation, I believe that I would have counted against the numbers at Chat State because a couple years ago, out of curiosity, I went and took a continuing education class in construction.
And didn't complete.
Just for fun. Right, and technically, I mean, I got my, whatever a continuing education certificate would be, but I wouldn't have completed it, right? Well,
Thank you. Well, thank you, Russ, for that report. I do have just one other update for you, and that is on the GIVE grants that you heard the governor announce. You'll recall that on February 5th, Governor Lee announced his very first legislative initiative, and that was the Governor's Investment in Vocational Education Act, or the GIVE grants. That was to expand access to career and technical training for Tennessee students. At the time, the governor said that expanding our vocational and technical offerings will be transformational for Tennesseans in the future of the state. Well, his words were absolutely true, because when it was announced, the $25 million, it was transformational for the Tennessee Board of Regents. THEC developed the details, guidelines, and the application process and issued a competitive request for proposals in June. The RFPs required the creation of local partnerships among higher education institutions, local K-12 systems, and economic development agencies to deliver the training programs funded by the grant. They also required data that clearly identified local workforce needs and a sustainable plan to deliver the training program. The program prioritized economically distressed and at-risk counties. Last month, Governor Lee announced the 28 partnerships that would receive the GIVE grants, and I'm pleased to report to you that our community and colleges and TCATs are the lead partners in all 28 of the grants that were announced. The grants ranged anywhere from $111,000 for a building and construction trades program led by TCAT Athens that will provide students with industry certification by the National Center for Construction Education and Research, to up to a maximum $1 million grant for 10 partnerships and just under $1 million for 11 others. And I know that we have at least one college that received at least 2 of the grants. These new partnerships and the training they'll provide cover a wide range of local workforce needs, from welding and construction to nursing and healthcare professions to cybersecurity to agricultural technology and advanced manufacturing. The funded projects will serve all of Tennessee's economically distressed counties and 18 of the 24 at-risk counties. And just last Friday, Governor Lee traveled to Pellissippi State, Strawberry Plains campus, and to Alcoa High School to personally announce the details of 2 of the grants, the Blount and Knox County Careers Collaboration, both led by Pellissippi State and TCAT Knoxville together. I'd like to congratulate and thank all of our colleges who are here in the audience today that worked with their communities and were awarded the grants. And we also want to sincerely thank Governor Lee and the legislators for this incredible investment in Tennessee to create more opportunities for student success and workforce development. So thanks to each of you that contributed so greatly to this process.
That is applause worthy. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Well done, and thanks to you and Dr. Deaton for the preview of coming attractions, as you put it. There's obviously a lot of interest from the board. That's great information. We do not have any unfinished business to come before us at this time, so we will move on to new business and our informational reporting. Now, just a reminder, the next 3 or 4 reports we hear are informational only and will not require any specific action from the board today. I'm going to first call on Vice Chancellor Perrier to come talk to us about her economic and community development update. And Carol, while you're at the mic, if the board has any questions for Carol around the employer and alumni survey on the TCATs, let's just deal with those at this time too. That was in our books and obviously provided in advance as an FYI. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today and to share with you the work of what is going on across our 40 campuses in the workforce arena as we continue to meet and exceed Tennessee's workforce needs. The Tennessee Trained Program, you're all probably tired of hearing about it, but I'm not tired of talking about it. We've got, we have graduated our third cohort of participants in November. The goal of this program, as you remember, is to have a statewide system approach to recruiting, retaining, and expanding companies across the whole state. We are partnering with the State Department of Economic and Community Development and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, along with our TBR institutions. Here's just a couple of photos. I'd like to let you know that at this point we have over 160 participants across the state that have graduated in the programs. We have 22% of those came from West Tennessee, 37 from Middle, 41 from East. Of the participants, a breakdown in case you're interested, 110 are TBR campuses, and to my knowledge, every single campus has had at least one person go through this program. We've had 37 people from different agencies. We've had 10 people with the Department of Education, along with some TBR, and then we've had 4 community people, or 3% from community, that have participated in. This picture is just in there because we met the day the governor came to TCAT Smyrna, so that's just a shout out to that group. As you know, each class has a project that they work on during the entire time. This year's group focused on a project on apprenticeships. The groups really honestly just did an outstanding job. They developed flyers, they developed radio spots, websites, videos, all types of promotional equipment that pieces that their campus can use. And so I think it was very worthwhile. Department of Labor is already using some of the pieces that they came up with. The groups actually looked at apprenticeship programs in a couple of different arenas. One group looked specifically at veterans. One group looked at coordinating with high school students, women apprenticeships, and then the general business apprenticeship programs as well. I cannot say this enough. The presentations were excellent. A special thanks to certainly all the participants, our campuses, and a special thank you to Deanna Stacy for her leadership in this project. Our next agenda item is going to talk about prison education update. As the Chancellor just mentioned, some of the initiatives from the governor. We're very proud to be talking a little bit about what we're doing in the next few weeks. As you're aware, part of the Governor Lee's comprehensive plans to address criminal justice includes expanding higher education with our incarcerated individuals. In 50%, I don't know if you know this was amazing to me, but 50% of inmates are incarcerated for nonviolent crimes. 95% of all inmates will leave prison and return back to society at some point. So education is critical to help them make that transition. And TBR is proud to be a part of this project. The goal in 3 years is to have educational programs in at least 8 of the facilities, and doing career and technical programs along with associate's degrees. We will be starting in January with the Northwest Correctional Complex with TCAT New Bern. They will be offering manufacturing technology and computer information technology. Both at the Turner Center and Morgan County Center, we will be offering computer information technology and construction with an emphasis in electrical and plumbing. We anticipate having a minimum of 20 students in each class, and they will go through, and the coursework that they complete will can PLA into our regular programs. Quick update on the warranty program. We're still very excited about that. I did receive my first phone call about 2 weeks ago, and my heart just stopped when I got the text message that said, you need to return this call. It's dealing with the warranty. But they wanted to copy what we were doing, so that made me feel great. But there for a second, I aged about 3 years. To date, we have issued 7,592 warranties, and we still have 0 claims. And so a shout out to the faculty and staff, along with the campuses. And I know one day I will get that phone call, but right now we still don't have it. And Jennifer Fuchs is doing a wonderful job working with the campuses to maintain that. The next part of our program is dealing with apprenticeships, and we've spoken a little bit about apprenticeships in September and maybe even some in June. But today I want to introduce Nathan Garrett. Nathan is our Assistant Vice Chancellor for ECD, and he has been working diligently with the apprenticeship program with business and industries. And I think Nathan's going to come up and share with you some of the things that he's been working on. So Nathan, there you go.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chancellor Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and the rest of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I really think that I probably have one of the most exciting arenas to be working in higher education right now, with a lot of opportunity for growth for the college system. And so first and foremost, I kind of want to provide a quick highlight of some of the activities that have gone on since we really started to target these. So National Apprenticeship Week was November 11th through the 17th. That was a week that everyone around the country was able to really put a focus on apprenticeship. And I'm very grateful and happy to say that this year we had a lot of activities going on with registered apprenticeship. And so one of our main primary partners in this is the Department of Labor, and they have been such a great partner to be able to bring those two organizations together and really leverage each other's strengths. So very much appreciate that. And so we partnered with them with Apprenticeship Week, and we had all sorts of activities going on. And really one of the most important activities that I want to draw attention to is we had a signing day, one of those really neat opportunities to bring in apprentices at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Nashville. And Vice Chancellor Reynolds, we appreciate your support and attendance. And so we had almost 30 HVAC technicians signing up for the apprenticeship program. The really neat thing about these apprenticeship programs is that day one, these apprentices are first and foremost employees. While they're working, while they're earning that wage, while they're providing resources for their family and their home, they're able to come to our institutions of higher education and really receive a great education while they're upskilling themselves on the job. So we had just about 30 HVAC apprentices in that. We also had another 30 electrical apprentices that started September 27th at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Nashville too. So a really neat opportunity for us to highlight apprenticeship. We also have partnered, just a real quick one, with the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority, which is really built on, of all things, an electrician. And so then we're going to build out HVC, we're going to build out other occupations there, but we're really excited about some of these highlights we're able to provide. These are by no means the only thing that's going on, but as far as Apprenticeship Week, these are really some big opportunities for us. Wanted to provide now kind of an overview of what the process looks like. Where are we at as far as the state of Tennessee Board of Regents with apprenticeship? And so the slide that you'll see here in front of you right now, we've got a lot of partners, industry partners, that already are working on registered apprenticeship. The really neat thing about this is we have apprenticeships being constructed in healthcare, construction, transportation, manufacturing. So we're really diversifying the occupational approach to apprenticeship. So when we look at where we're at as far as working with colleges, as of right now, we're working with about 18 colleges. We're working with all 40, but 18 of them are working to establish a way forward. Basically, what occupation do we want to select? Where are our strengths and where do we want to focus on? So if you look at the slide up here, we've got 18 different colleges, and it kind of starts from the big side of introductory, the funnel, where we're just now getting into the conversations, developing the strategy, and then by the time you get to the end, those are actually the colleges that are approved sponsors of apprenticeship and are offering programs and have active apprentices enrolled. And again, this is just a snapshot of some of the stuff that our office is doing. And at the end of the day, I want to stress that our office is helping organize, helping get a lot of the paperwork done and the really small, tedious stuff, but the folks behind me, they're knocking it out of the park. They're understanding that this is a new training mode that we can take advantage of and grow our campuses, produce more skilled labor that aligns with the industry demand. So we're really excited about this training approach, and I see nothing but growth as we go forward through 2020. So we've got some big goals for 2020 that we'd like to see apprenticeship scaled throughout the state of Tennessee. We have a really great industry partner with us today, and I really wanted an opportunity. I can sit up here all day and talk about how much fun we've had, how many programs we've started, what kind of effect we're having, But it means so much more when we're able to get an industry partner up here and talk about their perspective, why this helped them. And so Mr. Philip Johnson with the American Subcontractors Association was vital to starting the electrical apprenticeship program at TCAT Nashville, as well as the HVAC program. So I wanted an opportunity for Philip to provide his perspective on how this happened, why this happened, and really the benefits to business and industry through this apprenticeship program. So I would love to invite Mr. Philip Johnson up here to address the regents.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and the board members. My name is Philip Johnson. I'm here on behalf of the American Subcontractors Association. And back in the spring, I approached Mike Krause at downtown, and I said, Mike, we really need some help in the private industry for skilled labor. I said, but when I was a legislator, we worked on the Hope Scholarships and everything we could do to continue promoting academic scholarships. But I can tell you, having grown up in the construction industry through my life, and now representing that industry, there's a huge need for skilled labor. And I said, we need apprenticeship programs, and we need them now. And less than 6 months later, by partnering with that department and Carol and Nathan, we now have electrical apprenticeship program and HVAC program at TCAT Nashville. We would really like to see this continue to grow, and we would appreciate your support in that. The industry, if you haven't noticed, you look around Nashville, we have quite a booming economy. And there's a lot of big buildings going up around here, and there's a huge need for people to build those buildings. So I'll leave you with this. And we talk about how important academic education is, and I'm a strong supporter of that in higher education. But if you're in surgery and you're surrounded by highly skilled surgeons and nurses and anesthesiologists, and the power goes out, who is the most important person in your life? That'd be an electrician. And the other trades are just as important, and I know you know that. So I appreciate your support. Thank you for being at the signing days. It's an exciting time, and I can tell you on behalf of the private industry, many of those partners, those are our members of our association. We will be there for you. We provided the students in this first one, we provided resources. We helped bring supplies and to those classrooms, and we'll continue to do so. They are eager to help, and they will be there for you. We just need you to be there with us and partners. So thank you for this opportunity, and please continue to help us grow it.
I tell you, every 4 months, I have the best job in the system. So Nathan is doing a wonderful job. Our partners with Mr. Johnson, it couldn't be better. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we appreciate the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Back to the prison education. Are we only going into the prisons? Sending teachers into the prisons?
Yes, sir. Right now we are.
Okay. But, the reason I was asking, there's an overcrowded issue. And so if there's a way we could get the prisoners going out into our colleges, I mean the nonviolent ones, because they're being released anyway and being tracked. So instead of just sending them home, can we send them to get an education?
And I think that we are very open to doing that in certain areas. I know some with our jail programs across the state, we have brought the inmates to the campuses.
Okay.
But I think we will discuss anything to try to get them as many served as possible. But good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
How many students currently involved in the apprenticeship program?
Apprenticeship programs, Nation, do you know the total students involved in apprenticeship programs that have worked through our office? Because that's...
Yeah, so through our office, not
No, that's not the right.
Yeah, sorry.
That's $20 million or something. That's not. Let me get that number for you to be sure. We've got it broken down by institutions. We'll have it for you in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you in the community.
And any questions or comments for Carol while she's still there on our annual alumni and employer survey? The results are always good, always strong, so thank you. Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to the institutions who are doing that hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Philip, thanks. We know you guys are there with us. Thank you very much. That was an exciting day. I was also very proud to see some young women in those apprentice classes. So that was very exciting. And Commissioner McCord can speak for himself when he arrives. But the comment he made that day on departure was, you know what this feels like? This feels like momentum. So we thank you very much. It was a special day. We will now move on, after that excellent report, to our financial report overview from our Vice Chancellor for Finance, Danny Gibbs.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Today I'll be sharing with you two pieces of financial information. The first being the system-wide annual financial report, and the second being a report on the financial performance of the community colleges and TCAT sectors. Neither report will require any formal action on your behalf. And before we get started, I think it's the other slide deck. So, included in your mail-out materials, you should have received a copy of the fiscal year 2018-19 annual financial report for the Tennessee Board of Regents system. The report includes the consolidated financial information for the 6 locally governed institutions, the 13 community colleges, 27 TCATs, and the system office. Additionally, the report also presents financial information for the reporting entities' foundations. Again, the annual financial report is an informational item only and requires no action. Now I'd like to share some consolidated financial information for the community college sectors and the TCAT sector. TBR policy regarding institutional financial performance review requires that on an annual basis, the board shall be advised on the aggregate overall financial performance of the system's institutions. This year, this is actually the 7th year for reporting as required under this policy. To aid in the assessment, we use various financial ratios that are widely accepted in colleges and universities, as well as other select financial information related to overall unrestricted net asset position or fund balances, if you would. As required by the policy, we'll present aggregate results for each sector, including sector averages, expected performance levels or target performance levels, and watch levels. The first chart that I want to review with you reflects the total amount of adjusted unrestricted net assets by sector and the change of those assets over time. And note that I use the word adjusted here when describing the unrestricted net assets or fund balance. What that really means is that for the purpose of this particular evaluation, we have taken the unrestricted net assets or fund balance that was reported on the financial statements and we've reversed and eliminated certain accounting transactions that the schools are required to book for financial statement reporting purposes, but are not truly the financial responsibility of the colleges or outside the institution's control. And examples of those include certain entries related to some pension accruals and other post-employment benefits. As you'll see from the chart, fiscal year 18-19 was a pretty good year for both the community colleges and the TCAT sector. Adjusted unrestricted net assets for the community colleges increased by almost $45.8 million, while the TCATs increased by a little over $13.7 million. The percent increase for the community colleges and the TCATs combined was 15.5%. Additionally, the report tells us that the community colleges have about 7.4 months of unrestricted net assets available when compared to annual revenues, and the TCATs have about 7.3 months available. If you assume that the expenditures will somewhat mirror the revenues, then I think these numbers are pretty good. About 7 months of revenues is what reserves is what one would hope for. And as you can see, for both the community colleges and the TCATs, these numbers have generally been improving over time. In my opinion, these measures, which use the adjusted unrestricted net assets as a measurement tool, are really some of the best gauges of financial performance. It gives us a clear picture of really what the bottom line is and which direction it's moving. It also gives you some idea of the sufficiency of the fund balance levels. And again, it negates the impact of those accounting principle changes that we just discussed. On the next slide, we'll now take a look at the various other financial ratios that are used in the CFI, or Composite Financial Index calculations. The CFI it's a financial index that's generally used to measure the overall financial health of an institution. And I'll briefly describe these ratios as we go through them, but I do want you to keep in mind that while these ratios are indicators of financial health, they are certainly not absolutes. The first ratio that we'll look at today is the primary reserve ratio. The primary reserve ratio measures the financial strength by providing information on how long an institution can survive on their current reserves or savings. And the standard there is 0.4, which represents about 5 months of expenses. The watch level is 0.3, which represents less than a month and a half of expenses. And from the chart there, you can see that the red line is our actual performance, and the blue is the target, and the green is the watch level. As you'll see from the chart, the community college sector exceeded the target level of performance, which means that the reserves for the sector as a whole are in pretty good shape. The TCAT sector is well above the watch level and showed significant improvement over the previous year. Now we'll take a look at the return on net asset ratio. The return on net assets ratio provides information on whether the institution is better off at the end of the period compared to the beginning of the period. And this is one where a receipt of a large non-recurring state appropriation or gift for things like investment in plants or buildings really can kind of create some year-to-year volatility and really skew the results, especially for smaller schools. The industry standard is 3% above inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index. The watch level is where you're performing consistently below the rate of inflation. As a whole, the community college sector is well above the target, which generally means our institutions are better off than they were compared to the previous year and performing, again, at a good level. The TCATs are also performing above the target level. But I think here where the TCATs is a good example of where you can really see the impact of those large non-recurring state appropriations for gifts or for investment in plants or buildings. I think if you look at the spike in 2016, that's really what caused the spike there, with some large non-recurring state appropriations for some capital projects. Next, we'll take a look at the net operating revenues ratio. And this indicates an operating surplus or deficit and is similar to the profit margin and provides information on whether an institution is living really within their available resources. The industry standard is 4%, which represents an amount needed to keep pace with growth in expenses and to maintain adequate reserves. The watch level is performance that's consistently below zero. And note that a deficit in a single year really doesn't necessarily indicate a problem, but deficits over several years, could be cause for concerns. Again, we want to look at the trends with a lot of these ratios. This ratio, again, can tend to be volatile and can be negatively impacted by things that are outside the institution's control. And some of those, again, are some of those required pension and OPEB entries that I discussed earlier, and large capital maintenance non-recurring expenditures. As you can see, the community college sector performed above the target level. The DCAT sector also performed above the target level and, again, improved significantly from last year. Our next ratio that we'll look at is the viability ratio, and this measures financial health by comparing expendable net assets that you have on hand to your total long-term debt. and provides information on how much debt can be repaid with existing resources. And really, I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. We only have a couple institutions that have a little bit of debt, and they are all in good shape there. Next, we'll take a look at the composite financial index. Basically, to calculate the CFI, the four ratios discussed previously are combined into a single measure that will measure the overall financial health of the institution. And tracking the CFI over time provides the information on the progress an institution is making toward achieving their financial goals. Again, this is another one that we want to watch over time. The target is a CFI of at least 3.0. At this level, an institution is considered relatively financially healthy. The watch level is a CFI of 1 or less. For the community college sector, the performance for fiscal year 18-19 exceeds the target level, which would indicate that the sector as a whole is doing pretty well. For the TCATs, the performance also exceeds the target level for fiscal year 18-19. So I just want to conclude, I guess, with a few summary comments and observations. If you look at the four primary ratios there that we just discussed, for 3 out of those 4, both our community colleges and our TCATs are above the target level, and primary reserve community colleges are above, and the TCATs are pretty close to the target level. And probably if we look back over time, this is probably one of the better years that we've had as far as the condition that our schools are in and their performance in relation to these ratios and measures. And again, the adjusted unrestricted assets that we looked at earlier, again, both the community colleges and the TCATs were above the target level, with 12 out of our 13 community colleges actually increased their adjusted unrestricted net assets or fund balance last year, and 26 out of our 27 TCATs increased their position or their adjusted unrestricted net assets or fund balance as well. So today I presented you with information consolidated at each of the sector levels, community colleges and TCATs. At your table, you'll find a package that's got a handout that provides the same information, but for each individual institution for all the 40 schools. And if you'll recall that we discussed some of this information at the committee chairs meeting, and for time's sake today, I'll not be able to cover the details for all the 40 schools, but if you'll take the information with you, and if you've got any specific questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me. We will continue to monitor all of our schools' progress. In particular, there's 1 or 2 community colleges and 3 or 4 TCATs that we'll want to continue to just see sustained improvement over time. And having said that, and really at the risk of offending any of the presidents in the room today because of my omission, I do want to recognize and thank a few schools and individuals for their efforts to improve their overall financial position. These are some of the schools that have shown recent improvements, and these are not necessarily the schools that have the largest fund balances or the largest increases, but in many cases, the improvements that they've experienced haven't come easily. They've been the result of some sacrifices and some real grind on behalf of their institutions. Those that I want to recognize among the community colleges, Dyersburg State Community College and their Vice President for Business and Finance, Charlene White, Cleveland State Community College and their Vice President for Business and Finance, Alicia Fox, and Northeast State Community College, President Bethany Flora and CFO Chad Bailey. Among our TCATs, I would like to recognize TCAT Dixon, President Rita Summers, Harriman, President Dennis Turpin, Hartsville, President May Wright, Jacksboro, President Debbie Petrie, Knoxville, President Kelly Cheney, Newbern, President Yolanda Jones, and TCAT Whiteville, President Jeff Sisk. Again, we appreciate all of the 40 colleges and the efforts and attention that they've given to managing their financial conditions. So unless there are questions, Madam Chair, this completes our report.
Good report. Good work to everybody. So this is almost like our early warning system, right?
Yes.
So thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the group? Chancellor?
While Danny has recognized the presidents who have done exceptional work in raising their benchmarks, I want to recognize Vice Chancellor Gibbs and the work that he's done with the presidents to help make that happen. He has individual phone calls with each of them on a regular basis to make sure that they are staying on track. And the presidents can shake their head in agreement with this, but I think he helps them understand why this is important to the work that we're doing. So, Danny, thank you to you for what you're doing.
It's not often the finance guy gets a round of applause. Good work, Vice Chancellor. You know, and one thing I neglected to mention, I think, when we were talking about apprenticeships and the TCAT Nashville event, there was no one in the room happier than Mark Lentz, our president at TCAT Nashville. So, and Mark might have left us, but I wanted to make sure. There he is. There he is. You were a happy guy that day.
That's where I started. I started as an apprentice.
I know. So it was very special, but thanks for all you do. We are in for a treat. Commissioner McCord has arrived, and of course he's near and dear to us because he's one of our own as well. So we're going to deviate a little bit. Oh, there you are. Hello there. Oh, no. I'm going to deviate a little bit from our agenda, and as the Chancellor mentioned earlier, we'll turn it back to her for this second portion of her report. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. What you didn't realize is you're actually giving the Chancellor's report today. So thank you for being here to do that. And thank you for the great work that you're doing. As all of you know, you've heard us talk about this committee that's been put together, the task force, and Jeff is the lead of that task force and truly has done a tremendous job in herding cats and keeping them in the box and focused on what our goals and our missions are. And so, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us about this important work we've all been up to.
Great. Let me just introduce this for a little bit, and then we'll walk through two or three slides. But first, the genesis of this was we have a lot of really good things going on in Tennessee, a lot of islands of excellence. But the assessment was that as a system, as a workforce development system, we had trouble executing on a consistent basis. And I think that's no one entity's fault or problem. It's just the nature of when you have all these chiefs running around trying to do really good things and doing really good things, but executing as a system was one of our main issues. And so under the governor's guidance, we did form what we call the Workforce Development Steering Team, which consists of 7 different agencies all having a piece of workforce. And why don't we go to that first slide and see. So our assumptions, this is our strategic plan for the next 4 years, high level. And so the assumptions we have here is that in order to have a highly functioning workforce development system, you have to have 4 legs of the table: connection to current employers, pipeline infrastructure, connection to economic development, and outcome visibility. So those are 4 legs of the table. And if one of the legs isn't strong, at best it wobbles, and at worst it's non-functional table. One of the other assumptions was if we're going to execute and have a high functioning workforce development system for the state of Tennessee, we have to do it as a system and not as a collection of individual parts. And the third one is if we do this and we do it well, it will give us a competitive advantage in the state of Tennessee. So if we walk through those really quickly, you heard earlier that one of the main initiatives under our connection to current employers were apprenticeship, but there's also industry-specific training, which I know TBR knows very, very well. American Job Center integration with post-secondary. There's a lot of work to do there. There's islands of excellence with that as well, but there's, as a system, we need to get better. And then industry credential alignment, which I know the Chancellor is working on already with THEC and Mike Krause. And so that's on that side. On pipeline infrastructure, I think the key here is the breadth of what we're trying to do, everything from work-based learning to adult ed pathway. So we have more working age individuals in the state of Tennessee without a high school diploma than we have actually enrolled in high school. And so there's there's that big pathway there to invite them to opportunity and to satisfy the employer needs for skilled professionals. We have correction, our integration with correction, military transition. We have 400 military people transitioning every month from Fort Campbell. So those sorts of transitions, there's people, how do we engage that pipeline? Reemployment off of unemployment insurance, and of course, drive to 55. On the connection to economic development, there is project management and incentive, and a common incentive process. We have some work to do there, especially among the agencies of ECD, labor, and TBR. I think we can make that process smoother, and we can execute and put our best foot forward with a one-state approach. And then finally, the one I really nerd out about because I really like the data is just outcome visibility on across all those pipelines, so we know how we're doing, and really, more importantly, we'll know what we're doing next. Now, we had 7 agencies to come up with this particular strategy, which is all well and good to have a strategy, but you have to execute on the strategy. And really, thank you. That was very well done, whoever split that slide. And so as we talked to the governor, we said this was probably more about execution than about innovation. And so that whole big slide there about aligning, I'm pretty proud of that. I did that myself. Aligning and implementing and monitoring. Charlie, you couldn't do that, could you? I'm impressed. Thanks. I just said that for Charlie. This is how you would do a commercialization project in a large company or a large process improvement, multi-site with inputs and outputs. And so we're arranging multi-agency teams with responsibility for each one of these objectives so that we can, again, execute as a system and not as a collection of really good parts, but still a collection of semi-non-connected parts. We've collaborated very well in the past. And collaboration is great, but again, collective execution is what we're after. So we meet with our leads of all these projects next week so that we can kick them off. I'll give you an example of something that happens when you have folks talk together. So part of my responsibility is labor standards. So if you know what you can do and what you can't do in a workplace. That seems like it has nothing to do with K-12 education, unless you talk about work-based learning, and employers are nervous about having 16 and 17-year-olds in their work environments. And so one of the things we've begun to do in conjunction with DOE is send our folks in and say, this is what a 16-year-old can do, and this is what a 16-year-old can't do. And we are very busy debottlenecking that whole process so that they can actually have those folks enter the workplace. There will be dozens of things like that once these teams get together and start talking about what happens across each. It'll be common sense, but we'll call it innovation just because it sounds better. But we are excited about and have a high level of confidence about executing across all these. And I do want to take a minute, and this is the last slide we'll see right here, to say part of your chancellor has not only been central to this, but essential to this. Made every single meeting, and I told the governor asked me how it was going, and I said a whole lot better than I thought it would. We have made really good progress to have something done in a couple of months and how we're going to do it. And we submitted a collective common strategy 4-year plan for the governor, a collection, a collaboration between those 7 agencies. And so now they'll hold us accountable for it, which is also a good thing. With that, I want to say hi to all the familiar faces that I see here. It's good to be here, and any questions I'll be happy to answer.
Questions and comments for Commissioner McCord? What's been your biggest challenge in this first year?
Elevators. Yeah, elevators would be no unemployment insurance. But besides that, just navigating, never having been in state government before, understanding how the interaction with the General Assembly works, who I need to salute and who I need to not listen to, you know, all those kind of good things. And so But I'll tell you what I have found, and you'll hear this among a lot of the folks who are new to state government, is extraordinary people. And if we listen just a little bit, and before we do, I think it's made a big difference across all. This is a common refrain from every commissioner that you'll hear, is the wonderful people that we found, and maybe we can come in and contribute and provide some direction, and tap into that goodness. I think what we're doing here is we're trying to engage the collective creativity of all those folks without inviting the chaos. And so we have a strategy to do that so we can execute on that. And the folks that work in TBR and DOE and labor and the other 4 agencies are going to be able to figure out what to do if we give them the direction and the mechanism to do it. I have no doubt. So anyway, that was a long answer to a short question.
That's a good answer. That's
Thank
what I
you.
wanted to know. Commissioner Hatcher.
I just wondered, Jeff, about the timeline on the major goals, because that's something I'm interested in, you know.
Because you had to submit one too, didn't you? Yeah. So that each one of those initiatives have different timelines. Some of them will finish first. Our one state approach with ECD, that should be done in a year. That's people getting in the room and mapping a process and deciding roles and responsibilities and that sort of thing. And so we have some by academic year and some by calendar year. And so my answer to you, Charlie, is it depends, but it's scattered. Some will finish in. And the way we have it structured is that it's not, we can invite new projects in once some complete, because it's an ongoing thing. We'll meet, that group, that steering team will meet monthly and meet with the leads and see how we're progressing, what barriers we can remove and that sort of thing. And as things change over the next 4 years, we'll have the ability to adapt and adjust as we go as well.
Is there anything else you need from this board? Thanks for your kind comments about our chancellor and what TBR brings to the table. Is there anything else we need to be doing to support her and our team going forward?
I think things like this are great. Just that communication across what we're doing and understanding and pulling in the same direction and that sort of thing. I think as we get rolling next year, some updates would be great. And also, I guess the one thing I would ask from this board is to be aware, especially about what your folks in TBR are doing.
Someone broke into my gang box and took everything.
You're covered for portable tools and property.
Right. Look away from the people in the corner. So I'll keep going like that didn't happen. How about that? And so understand what they're doing and celebrate them, cheer them, encourage them, say way to go, so that they know that there's the support and the knowledge of whatever might be happening. So when we hit the 20, when we hit how many did we have? The 20% more, the 1,000 apprentices, to bring Nathan in here and just say way to go, and all that kind of good stuff. I think the awareness and the engagement for your folks would be what I would ask, and let them know how important it is and how good of work that they're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I know you're on a limited schedule. Chancellor, you want to close us out?
I just want to thank you also. And I don't think I properly introduced him as Commissioner McCord of the Department of Labor. Most of you know Jeff as working at Northeast Technical College, so we are proud that he has been a part of our system and truly does understand the work that we do every single day. So, Jeff, thank you very much for coming and being here today and taking time to explain that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks. That was very helpful. Thank you. And you will keep us posted on next steps. Very exciting. It's always fun to collaborate. So that's excellent. Let's return now to new business, and our next informational report comes from Dr. McCormick on External Affairs.
Well,
good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and board members. I think I want to argue with Dr. Pereira in saying that I actually have the best job at TBR and the best team. Anyway, they're great, and I want to tell you that just like we told you at the last board meeting, we continue to monitor legislation, and later in this meeting, we'll talk to you about one specific piece that we need to deal with. The SOAR event is going well as far as planning. Again, that's March 24th and 25th. Assistant Vice Chancellor Perkins has raised over $40,000 so far to go toward that event, and we're very excited. The regional competitions have concluded, I believe, and one additional award this year that we are so excited about, and going back to talking about the GIVE grants, is there's a new award now for partnership. And it would be an award for partnership between a community college, technical college, business and industry. So that is forthcoming, and Dr. Deaton and his team will be getting together very soon to deal with the College of the Year. Again, pry that trophy back away from Bill Seymour at Cleveland State, and also in that partnership award as well. But today, Assistant Vice Chancellor Perkins is here to give you an update on the annual advancement report that we do every year. And that report will detail all of the fundraising that has happened at both our community and technical colleges. So, Chris.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick, and Vice Chair Reynolds, and Chancellor Tidings, and everybody for having me here today. At your place, I folded mine in half, but at your place you have a copy of our foundation report that we do each year. And what this consists of is volunteer support for education that each of our 13 community colleges submit into a database, and then we get that report, and then we just give the results back to you all. So we put that in, and I wanted to just give you some highlights of what's in front of you right here today. Some of the highlights in this include, in FY19, TBR's 13 community college foundations raised over $15 million, which was an increase over $1.5 million from last year's fundraising total. And over the past 5 years, we'd seen an increase over the last 3 years in a row, so this just continues that trend. All of our community colleges are doing an outstanding job. I do want to cite Pellissippi State. We've been saying their name a lot today. Pellissippi State had an excellent year and raised the largest amount in FY19 of $2.964 million. This year we had 3 community colleges that raised over $2 million. Pellissippi State, Walter State, and Dyersburg State. And we had, I believe we had 6 or 7 that went $1 million or more, which was an increase as well. So they've all been doing really well. Internally, it was called the TCAT Foundation, now the Foundation for the College System of Tennessee. We're now at $1.174 million in total dollars in FY19. This is up from just over 900,000 last year. And also to tell you, the FY19 value of all of our 13 community college foundation endowments collectively is more than $96 million. And that's up from FY18 by nearly $11 million. And our TCAT saw a total of $4.8 million brought in from local grants, private gifts, and grants as well. I do want to let you know that some other highlights of our year included our inaugural foundation board meeting that we had on September 26th. I do want to give you a funny little story. That was the day of Dr. Pereira's Tennessee Trained event that Governor Lee spoke at. So we had a student that came to speak to our foundation board that was from the TCAT Smyrna campus over there, the Murfreesboro Smyrna campus. And he came in and saw this room, and I heard him. He goes, "Thank goodness." And he was a young kid. And I said, "You all right?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "They told me that I was going to be speaking in front of a group of people, and then I was told it was going to be this group of 150 people and the governor of the state of Tennessee." And so he realized that he was just speaking in front of 15, 20 folks in a room, and he felt a lot more at ease about it, but he did a great job either way. We now completed AT&T, and president of AT&T Tennessee, Joel Phillips, came to us about 6-7 months ago and wanted to get us involved with her on their ATM national initiative, AT&T Believe. And so they came to us, and we worked with our 13 community colleges and got a total of right at $70,000 from AT&T. For the 13 community colleges, each of our community colleges get $5,000 apiece to go to their emergency and cost of living scholarship fund. And with that, what we were able to do is we went into one elementary school in each of our community colleges. We've done 7 so far in Jackson, Johnson City, Nashville, Memphis, Chattanooga, and I'm maybe missing one. But anyway, we went into one elementary school. We've been to 7 so far. We've got 6 more to do in the spring. But I can tell you, we collected, TBR presented water bottles and the coloring books, the TCAT coloring books. And then each of the community colleges that have been involved so far did a crayon drive. So they did crayons for the children. And then AT&T brought backpacks, brought school supplies, hats, gloves. I mean, and so when these children came in the room, I mean, it was, and I'll give you something in Memphis. We were at Dunbar Elementary School right there by Melrose High School. And the principal there, Brian Ingram at Dunbar, got the Melrose High School Drum Corps. And so they came over, and as each class came into the room, the drum corps, it was on the day after it sleeted and snowed, and it was colder, and it was just cold that morning. So we had to move into a room, from the football field. And so the drum corps played each class in as they got their supplies, which was awesome, unless you were in there for 2.5 hours. And we all came out of there a little rattled, but I mean, it was incredible, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And this is the first year they've done this, where we've been getting the money to the TCATs for the computer information system equipment. And now they want to get into the community college as well. So this year we got over $150,000 from AT&T, and we're really pleased. And I want to just tell you, last week I was in Memphis and met with President Rayner, and then also with FedEx. And they're right now, President Rayner's been working with FedEx so wonderfully over the years that he has if I'm correct, a 727 that you have right now. 727 you have there right now. And they're getting ready to get rid of that. They're kicking that thing to the curb. And we're getting a Airbus. A310. Yeah, A310 valued at how much? $30 million. About $30 million. So it's going to, and we're looking to do that at the end of January. Yes, and when we talked to Chris about the legal document coming over to do this, I think she thought that we were getting one to fly everybody around all the time, but she felt at ease when we told her it was just for equipment work. But with that said, in working with FedEx, they realized we also have 3 other aviation maintenance programs around the state of Tennessee now, and we're in the process of discussing smaller planes for those programs to be getting as well. That'll be happening over the next year and a half. So unless anybody has any questions, that concludes my report.
Sounds like a lot of good work going on.
It's wild. And I will.
Regent,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, a lot of great work. And the fund balances, is that cash or cash equivalents, or does it include the value of an Airbus?
Right now, that's cash and anything they hold in equipment, I believe. I'm 99.9. I can verify that.
So the $96 million is not.
Oh, that's their endowment. That's endowment. Yeah, that's endowment.
And
so they're just
$15 million that we raised last year was some of that equipment?
So, some of it could be cash or equipment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry. That's yes.
Yeah, that's the cash
Yes.
total on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Equipment, I'm sorry, the equipment's another
Yes.
section.
Yes.
Anybody else? Good work, Chris.
Thank you, and I'll leave you with this. If you remember the parking at SOAR last year, getting people in and out of valet, we are going to have a SOAR Express this year, so we're going to have a bus taking people around. So,
Okay.
And I've driven some of you around from the airport to the meetings here, so I may or may not take that bus on. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good work. Dr. Deaton, you are back up with our strategic plan update.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Chancellor Tidings asked Wendy Thompson and I to lead the strategic planning effort, which is a great joy for us because this is one of the most foundational things any organization can do, especially a board. Yesterday, the TBR 2025 Strategic Plan Steering Committee met for the first time. And I want to give you an update about those conversations and also what's going to unfold over the next few months. As context and background, in 2015, TBR approved a strategic plan that closely aligned with the statewide master plan and the Drive to 55 as established by THEC. That plan, much like the goal that undergirds it, looks out a decade to the year 2025, where Tennessee aims to have 55% of its adult population with a post-secondary credential. And that plan set a target for TBR that would fulfill our share of that statewide target. So that TBR plan at first centered around 4 principles: access, student success, quality, and resourcefulness and efficiency. In 2017, this body slightly modified that plan by adding a 5th pillar, which was partnerships, promotion, and advocacy. And now we're on the cusp of the midway point of that 10-year period, and both Drive to 55 and the TBR strategic plan envision this mid-year cycle, which we are about to go through. So therefore, the steering committee met yesterday again for the first time to guide that work, to offer feedback, and to ultimately make a recommendation to both the chancellor and the board for any potential revisions to that plan. Serving on the committee are Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Prescott. We have 4 college presidents from around the state, staff from the colleges across every aspect of the organization, academics, faculty, finance, etc., as well as partners from agencies, labor, agriculture, and education. And yesterday we gathered for the first time again to explore themes that form the foundation of a revised plan. We also invited several national experts to join the conversation and to offer their insights into where TBR has been and where it should be in the future. Vice Chair mentioned this earlier, but it was Dennis Jones from the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, one of the most respected policy leaders the nation has had for the past 3 decades, as well as David Hartleb and Renee Garcia from Achieving the Dream, all of whom have worked in Tennessee for many years. They know our context, they know our history, they know our values, they know us. So the conversation centered around several defining questions that we explored in some depth, such as, how does TBR promote collaboration across all 40 colleges? What does it mean to have an open access mission? Is that the proper framing for us? And if so, how well are we fulfilling that mission? Whom does TBR serve and how well are we serving them? And are we expending our energy and attention on the right reforms, and how do we prioritize those efforts going forward? So as the conversations unfolded, several themes emerged which we will explore in the coming months, such as access, affordability, equity, innovation, collaboration, student success, and workforce development. So the next step in this process is for a small team from TBR to begin to have very focused conversations with partners around the state, colleges, those in the college access landscape, the broader policy landscape, industry and workforce. We want to get their thoughts on TBR's mission, the issues that should define our work over the next few years, and the themes that emerged from yesterday's steering committee. All of that will be brought back to the steering committee, which will meet again probably in late spring, early summer, to take a status report on where we are before a final meeting late summer as we prepare for recommendations to bring to this body. So this process is at the beginning stages, but it's important to us that it be very open, that it be transparent, that it be very inclusive, provocative where we need to be, reflective about where we have been, sober about our current reality, and of course optimistic and ambitious about our future. Vice Chair Reynolds, happy to answer questions about that, or to also obviously ask for your comments about the meeting yesterday, you and the Chancellor.
So is the plan is the timeline, the plan to bring a new strategic plan to us in September or the December meeting?
Probably September. I think we can get it done by then. That's the goal.
I had such fun yesterday. I'm willing to meet again before late spring, early summer.
And that's good. We'll take you up on that.
That was great. Chancellor, what would you like to add on it?
I want to thank Russ and his team for the work that they've done, and Wendy Thompson as well, her office, for getting us ready to do this strategic planning. They don't just open the door and throw some paper out and say, go plan. They put a lot of work into gathering the data, making sure that we had all the information that we needed at our hands to have discussions in an open and honest venue. So thank you for that. Thank you for what you're about to do with meeting with all of the groups. It's much appreciated.
Regent Green.
Russ, what's our percentage towards Drive to 55 currently?
The state's currently at 42.7%, and that's up from about 36% when we started.
Good question.
And just to interject on that, TBR is actually ahead of our projection as to where we are. So we're very happy with where we are on the drive to 55. If we just continued at the rate we were at, we will exceed our specified goal if we continue doing what we're doing. But we don't continue to keep doing what we're doing. We continue to do better. So.
And that's even after we raised our
That's
specified.
even after we raised the bar on us.
So, good work. This will be fun.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we have just a quick update in March on where you are?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, for
that'd be
sure.
great.
Mhm.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, team, let's turn now to our action items under new business. And the first is to hear once again from Vice Chancellor Gibbs on our October revised budget.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members. Today we're going to take a look at the October revised budgets that were submitted by our campuses. If you'll recall, in June of 2019, the board approved the proposed budget for fiscal year 1920, and this provided the system with the initial budgetary operating authority for this fiscal year. But the proposed budget did not recognize factors such as obviously fall enrollment changes that we've experienced and level of any grant or contract revenue that may have come in since that point, any final state budget adjustments. The revised budget, again, also accounts for any carryover funds that we have from the previous fiscal year. Again, we've got the books closed out for fiscal year 18-19. And so those things are taken into consideration as well. The first thing that we'll look at is the total budgeted revenues comparison between revised budgets. Again, looking back a year ago at 18-19 October revised budget comparing to the fiscal year 19-20 revised budget. The first thing you'll see is that state appropriations has increased 9% since last year, and we'll take a little bit deeper look at that on the next slide in just a minute. But if we'll look at student fees, the maintenance and tuition increased about 2% since last year, which again seems about in line if you consider that we had, I believe for community colleges, about a 2.46% tuition rate increase, and enrollment for fall was down just slightly, I think 0.7%. So we've got about a 2% overall growth in maintenance and tuition. Mandatory fees, again, similar. I think last year we had a slight increase in the technology access fee, which would account for those additional revenues. And then under the other fees, various things under there. One of the drivers of that is continuing education registrations, or really workforce development type registrations, are up in some of our campuses. And then again, in a few places there were some new academic course fees as well. And then under sales and services and other, that increased 6%. And that includes things like unrestricted state, local, or private contracts, sales and services, which would include things like live work at our campuses, our TCATs, for things like cosmetology or dental hygiene, and some testing fees, facility rentals, investment income, miscellaneous things are included in that line item. But overall, the revenues are up 5% compared to a year ago. And again, on the next slide, we'll look a little bit at state appropriations. Again, state appropriations increased about $31 million. Part of that was from some non-recurring improvements, again, related to insurance and benefits that were funded, and then the bulk of it coming from the outcomes funding formula. And then there were some legislative amendments for about $6 million, and those included things like the safety and security grants of $2 million that we received. The Megatronics program received some funding. There was some TBR administrative cost support. And there was some correctional education appropriations that were received as well. So again, altogether about a $31 million or 9% increase in appropriations. Next, we'll take a look at the unrestricted educational and general expenditures by functional area. Again, these are the unrestricted educational expenditures. And here you'll see, I'm pointing out a few things. Instruction increased year over year by 4%. Academic support increased 8%, and student services increased 7%. And I really think that tells us that our campuses are investing in the right places, really to move the needle on the drive to 55. I mean, these are areas of direct investment with instruction and student services, really to make our students successful and, again, help support, I think, the drive to 55. And again, overall, the expenditures changed about 5%. And again, this includes also things like we had the 2% cost of living adjustment, and I think inflation during this period was about 1.6, 1.7% as well. The next slide, unrestricted educational and general expenditures by natural classifications. And here we'll see the salary line increased 5% from the previous year. And again, as we just mentioned, that there was the 2% cost of living adjustment. There were some investments in campus salary plans. Travel increased about 13%. Much of this was for faculty professional development and some funding of travel for our athletic teams to travel to tournaments. The capital outlay increased about 30%, or about $1.2 million, and we had 4 or 5 schools that made some pretty significant budget investments in instructional equipment, so that accounted for the increase there. Again, about a 5% overall increase. Next, we'll take a look at the unrestricted and restricted fund expenditures and transfers, a summary of those. And again, the difference in this slide and the previous is it includes restricted funds, which a lot of our grants and so forth, as well as transfers. And again, the first line, the unrestricted E&G, just reflects what we just saw on the previous, about a 5% increase. Really, the largest item on here is of change is the transfer. The transfers, and that increased about 136%, and we will look at that just a little closer on the next slide. We've got a slide that will show the kind of the details of that. Really, the transfers were made primarily to 3 areas. Retirement of indebtedness. Remember, I indicated that our schools don't have a lot of debt, but when they do, they will transfer funds to the Retirement of Indebtedness Fund to support future debt service payments. And then unexpended plant fund. That's really to fund building and infrastructure needs, whether it be new construction or improvements or major renovations. And then renewal and replacements, primarily to fund future replacements of equipment. And again, you'll see some significant transfers in these areas. Again, they're just getting ready for future expenditures they may have to make to support these areas. And this is kind of in line with what we saw in the financial presentation, with the fund balance increase that we had during the past year. I think it was about $60 million, and that's about what we're seeing transferred and set aside for future investments. Our next slide will show a summary of unrestricted funds available and applied. And with this slide, we'll start out at like the beginning of fiscal year fund balance in the current fund, and that was about $200 million. And then we will look at the revenue and additions and the expenditures for this cycle. Again, revenues, unrestricted revenues, about $776,000, expenditures about $769,000, and transfers about $62,000. That's a net reduction in the current fund of about $54 million. But remember, $62 million of that basically is almost like transferring out a check into savings is really what we're doing there. If you compare the revenues and expenses, they're actually reflecting a net increase of about $7.5 million. Our next slide will provide a summary of the positions, the authorized positions in the October budget. With approval of the budget, the board will be authorizing a grand total positions for our system as a whole of about 6,864 positions. This is up about 1.8% from last October. The biggest area of growth that we saw was in faculty positions, which were up 3.9%. The next slide, again, is an overall summary of the expenditure budget, and this is really what you'll be acting on at the end. Here again, it reflects unrestricted E&G expenditures of $762 million, restricted of about $378 million, auxiliaries, those are things like our bookstore, cafeteria operations, et cetera, about $7 million, and total transfers to our plant funds of about $62 million for a total of about $1.2 billion, again in 6,864 positions. If you'll recall, under the Focus Act, we are still required to consider the LGI or the university budgets, and that consideration is limited to those matters that are necessary to fulfill the existing debt covenants, representations, agreements, and obligations under financing agreements entered into with the Tennessee State School Bond Authority. So that's the purpose of our review of the university budgets. To that end, the university budgets have been received and reviewed in accordance with TBR policy related to consideration of university budgets. And the review has determined that the universities have met the debt service coverage requirements, the budgets have been found to be mathematically correct and internally consistent, and the universities have certified compliance with required representations. And again, except as noted, no judgments have been made otherwise on the university budgets. So Madam Chairman, the university budgets are recommended for approval as being in compliance with the above TBR policy. Additionally, staff recommends approval of the 1920 October revised budget for the TBR system as presented.
Any questions for Vice Chancellor Gibbs? If there are not, I'm going to call on Regent Duckett as our finance chair, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As chair of the Finance and Business Operations Committee, I do move approval of the revised FY 2019-2020 budget as presented by Vice Chancellor Gibbs.
Thank you, sir. Need a second? Second. Thank you. Was that Regent Prescott? Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? If not, because these are matters of finance, we will need a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Regent Apple?
Aye.
Regent Burdine?
Aye.
Regent Dollar? Aye. Regent Duckett?
Aye.
Regent Gill?
Aye.
Regent Green? Aye. Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Aye.
Regent Pepper? Aye. Regent Prescott?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds?
Aye.
Regent Shockey? Aye. Regent Barlin? Regent Wong?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Very good. Thank you, Danny. Next, I will call on Regent Hatch. This too will require a roll call vote. It's approval of the special called meeting of personnel and compensation. Joey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Personnel and Compensation Committee met for a special called meeting on November 19th, 2019 to review and recommend approval of the proposed institutional compensation proposals. Institutional proposals were received from 7 community colleges and 1 Tennessee College of Applied Technology. I move that the board approve the report of November 19th, 2019 meeting and the Committee on Personnel and Compensation as presented.
Thank you, sir. We'll need a second for Regent Hatch's motion. Second. Thank you, Mary Lou. Any discussion? I think most, if not all of us, attended some or part of that meeting, so have some immediate familiarity. If there's no discussion, once again, Sandra, please call the roll.
Thank you. Regent Apple?
Aye.
Regent Burdine?
Aye.
Regent Dollar? Aye. Regent Duckett?
Aye.
Regent Gill?
Aye.
Regent Green?
Aye.
Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Aye.
Regent Pepper?
Aye.
Regent Prescott?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reynolds?
Aye.
Regent Shockey? Aye. Regent Varlin? Aye. Regent Wong?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Vice Chancellor Hamilton, you are up at bat for the next 3 items.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Reynolds, Regents, and Chancellor Tidings. Last week you received an updated packet of information from Academic Affairs from Sanja, and so thank you for your review. There were a little glitch in our software system, and so we wanted to make sure that you had the most up-to-date proposals for your review. So today, on behalf of the colleges and on behalf of the Academic Affairs Office here at the Tennessee Board of Regents, it is my privilege to present to you 12 academic program proposals that are being presented to you for your review and approval. These proposals will allow our technical colleges to be more responsive to our students, to our business, and our industries. So I would like to list those for you. Thank you. The Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Covington, the implementation of an agronomy operations technology program at TCAT Covington. I will say that this is not only a new program at TCAT Covington, this is a new program in our system. Okay. That's TCAT Crossville, the implementation of masonry technology program at TCAT Crossville. And I will say it has been a joy for me to learn the difference between bricklayers and stonemasons. So President Whiteman and his faculty have done a great job of educating me on masonry programs. TCAT Crossville, next. TCAT Crump, the implementation of a new online computer-aided design technology program at TCAT Crump. Currently, this program is already on the academic program inventory at TCAT Crump, but what this proposal relates to is for them to offer 50% of the program online. So we're moving to an online format here in this particular program at TCAT Crump. TCAT Dixon, the implementation of a building construction technology program at TCAT Dixon. TCAT Elizabethton, we have a replication of two existing programs. Dean Blevins and his faculty are replicating the diesel-powered equipment technology evening program in Johnson County, at the Johnson County Extension Campus. And then they are also requesting to replicate the welding technology evening program at TCAT Elizabethton in Unicoi County. So TCAT Elizabethton, the main campus is in Carter County, and so they are requesting to expand these two programs in Johnson and Unicoi counties. TCAT Jacksboro, we have 3 proposals: the implementation of building construction technology, the implementation of heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration, and the implementation of manufacturing technology program. TCAT Knoxville, the implementation of nursing aid program at the TCAT Knoxville, the Anderson County Career and Technical Center. TCAT Livingston, the implementation of building and electrical technology program at TCAT Livingston. And TCAT New Bern, the implementation of a computer information technology program. In addition to the new program proposals, you also received in your packet academic actions for December 2019 requiring only the notification to the Vice Chancellor. And so there were 9 actions, and the 9 actions consisted of 1 inactivation, 2 terminations, and 6 modifications. So thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Hamilton? Looks like there's a lot going on too, so that's exciting.
We are busy.
Very good.
Busy,
Very
but I like busy.
That's right. That's right. Keeps us all out of trouble. So, if there are no questions, may we have a motion to approve these program changes, please? Thank you, Regent Prescott. A second. Regent Varlin, thank you very much. If there's no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Let's talk about our technical college learning support.
Yes, yes. You have in your packet the establishment of a new policy. This is a policy that is specific for our technical colleges of applied technology. This is a new policy. And when you review the policy, or as you review the policy, I do want to say that faculty at the 27 TCATs had input in developing the learning support policy. program directors had support, and this particular policy has been reviewed and approved by academic subcouncil, faculty subcouncil, the student success subcouncil, and the president's council. So we have vetted the policy through the appropriate channels, obviously beginning with the faculty and the program directors, the experts.
Refresh my memory about what drove the need for this new policy.
Well, you know that in our community college system, we have learning support, the co-requisite model. And so we want to make sure that when students enter into our TCAT institutions, that they have the skill sets in terms of reading, the graphic, there is applied mathematics, graphic literacy, and reading for information. And so this will be delivered, this course that will be delivered as a co-requisite in a co-requisite model. So it will be paired in some form or fashion with a course or a particular program.
Excellent. Questions? We'll need a motion to approve. Regent Gill?
No, meaning no disrespect, I have no idea what this is. And I realize that the board can't be involved in every piece of minutia. That would be very counterproductive. On the other hand, this is being brought to the board, and we're supposed to be voting on it. And I would be curious as to how many people on the board have any idea what we're voting on. Sergeant Pepper does. Danny does. And that may be okay, but if it's something where we really aren't supposed to know, then just don't bring it. That's what I would prefer. And we can't be experts on all of this, but at the same time, let's not go through something where I raise my hand and say aye when I don't have a clue what we're voting on.
Go ahead, Regent Duckett.
Madam Chair, it's my understanding these are changes in programs that are being offered, and it is further my understanding by policy we are required to approve them. Secondly, I as a board member, when I receive information, if I am not clear on it, as Mr. Gibbs can verify, I pick up the phone and I call him to get clarification on it. So I appreciate the comment that was made, but I don't think it's fair for us to imply that staff is not adequately informing us of issues that are being brought before us, because that's a two-way street. Thank you.
Regent Gill?
And I appreciate Regent Duckett's comments. I'm not trying to imply that staff hasn't informed us. I am merely saying that I think that that the role of the board needs to be a realistic one, and maybe we shouldn't be approving this. I just don't see the added value when most of the board members seem to be in the same position I am, and that we're going through a motion. And I think that's sort of a dangerous route to go down. It's very easy to come here because I'm enjoying it too. And we have good friends, things are going well, you guys are working hard. And it's very easy to just go along and get along. It's like going to church every Sunday and sleeping through the sermon, sort of. And I think that's not a good role for the board to be in. So maybe what I'm saying is the board needs to look at its role some more and look at some of the stuff that we're required to approve and say, are we really adding any value there? We've got a lot of great professionals here passing through this program, and who am I to second guess what they're doing?
Well, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I guess I'll kind of underscore what Regent Duckett said. First of all, it is our role to approve policy. Second of all, this was made available to us. But is, from a timeliness perspective, if there is any unreadiness, if we don't act on this today, what impact do we have on your operation?
Let me check with a couple of folks. We could hold today and review this at the March board meeting.
Regent Duckett?
Yeah, I guess the better question would be whether or not the consensus or the majority of the board wants to hold. this issue. Because I have the packet. My assistant gave me the packet. I reviewed the packet. I'm prepared to vote.
Regent Apple and then Regent Prescott.
So, some of the discussion may be that we don't always use the same terminology when we're discussing this. So, if we use the same terminology that earlier, like Russ Deaton talked about and we've had before, it's still sales again. It's still our ACT scores again. We're just taking things that we're already doing in the community college and adding a readiness assessment of our TCATs now. Is
Yes.
that accurate to say?
Yes. Yes.
So we're really talking about the same things. It's just applied for a technical college and their programs, as we're already and have been doing in the community college for a
Yes,
long
correct.
time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I do think that it's very important for this board to approve policies that have to do with academic programs. And I was a little bit taken aback with the question because I am familiar with this, again, because of having reviewed it. So I think that on an individual basis, if any particular person does not feel prepared, they don't need to vote. But I would think it would be counterproductive to hold a vote for the entire body.
Appreciate that perspective. Chris, could we change this from a voice vote to a roll call vote? And that way, if there is any unreadiness, there's the ability to signal that. Okay. Regent Gill?
I think that my question, that I'm not being clear on what my question is. I'm not questioning this policy. I'm not questioning the work that they've done. What I am questioning is, what are we as a board spending our time on to go through every one of these policies and to understand them in their depth for these votes? I'm not sure that that's what we ought to be doing as a board. And so what I'm really trying to say is, as a board, not do we postpone this vote, not do we second guess what's been done here. I'm not trying to do that. What I am doing is second guessing how are we spending our time and our focus as a board. The operation of this institution, I think, is going well. The trains are running on time. I don't know about the strategic side of it, and that's where the board, that's their, at least in private sectors, the boards are supposed to make high-level strategic decisions. And so that's the question that I'm raising, and that's what I'm bringing up. I have no desire to postpone it. I have no desire even to vote against it. But I also don't think that this board is well served by going through thick packets of information and coming up to speed on things where we're not adding any value, and in many instances, we don't understand it even after we read it. At least in my early years, that's the way it's been.
Regent Duckett?
I believe I understand the context of the question, but philosophically, we are the checks and balances on the system. At the heart of what we do is provide education. This is the addition, altering, or termination of educational offerings. So whether you or I like it or not, the buck stops here when it comes to modifications to the programs that our institutions offer. And I guess what I'm trying to say is we can't escape that obligation. Now, we might be able to restructure how the information is brought to us, but that's a fundamental component of what we do as regents for the students of the state of Tennessee.
May I offer a
please,
different
Danny.
perspective and just say, in this moment in time, Regent Gill, and I understand where you're coming from because you haven't had a lot of longevity to think about the bigger picture of this, but in this moment in time, it's sort of like, okay, so we're looking at these courses and, why do we care about this? And in terms of sitting in this room and being the level of decision makers. But I'm going to say from a perspective of this is my third term or whatever, that having paid attention to this over the last 10 years, it's very interesting and very appropriate to see how we've changed and how the services that are being offered are going and changing with what workforce and our state requires and needs. So it would be very scary, for example, if we were seeing the same things being offered, and that would be where we would be going, now, wait a minute, why are we still doing this? We only have, when we know from the perspective of what we just heard from our Commissioner of Labor and how we need reacting and how quickly we need to react, what is actually going on. And an example of that in the early years of my service, we had to, and instead of being able to quickly do this ourselves, we had to go through this ridiculous amount of time to respond quickly to make these kind of changes. I know it seems like it's no big deal now, but because we were the regents as a board, we're standing up going, now wait a minute, you're telling me that it's going to take 2 years for us to change this because of our, the way we were doing things. And so what happened is we changed things because we realized that, meaning we realized that was not serving our workforce people or, our students, anybody well. So it's hard for you to see that right now because we're sitting in this and you're going, for God's sake, why do I care about this? But in reality, the bigger picture is it is the check and balance, and I've watched it work in a way that has been very positive. And so the thing is, sometimes it may seem very redundant, but then over time, you're watching, you're paying attention, just like you're doing right now, just like you're questioning. That's a good thing, to make sure that the last yes is not just a yes, but that it is a thoughtful process of this is good or this is not. So it's just a different perspective, and I appreciate you're being a person that questions rather than just rubber stamps.
Any closing comment, and then we do need to move on.
Yeah, no, thank you, Danny. I appreciate that. And I think that probably, if I stayed here 10 years, I perhaps could do an added value on these sort of things. Again, I'm not talking about this specific policy, but this is probably representative of many that we have. I'm talking about the role of the board. And I do think that these group of people are value added. Every day they're value added. Are we value added? And I think that's the question that we ought to be looking at is our role. Is it value added? You perhaps are value added on this because you understand it. And maybe perhaps I will come in time to see that. But at this point in time, I don't see the board particularly engaged in that. I don't see many people who are engrossed in this part of it. And in reality, I mean, if this is something strategic that we're doing, then I would concur with that. Perhaps I don't know enough to know that it is strategic, and it's not. And I don't see it and understand the strategy. That's a real possibility. But I do think as boards, or as board members, we should be looking at the strategy and let the operations go to the expert and evaluate what they do and hold them accountable. But our job is to add value in terms of the strategy. I'm never going to walk in here and go to a TCAT and say, your welding professor is not very good. It's just, and we as board people shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm saying. But thank you all. And I have no intention to hold it up. I'm not going to vote against it.
Vice Chair Reynolds, the only thing that I'll add, and I come with the context of one board meeting less than Regent Gill, but I do recognize that we all have limited time. This is a relatively short meeting considering that we're taking a 10,000-foot look at a billion-dollar organization. And I think one of the things that I'm certainly in the infancy of trying to figure out, and so is Regent Gill, is, for example, we are taking a look at this, which I feel inadequately prepared to vote on because, and it might just be the mechanics. I didn't review it, but I didn't know what I missed so that I didn't review it. But it does seem interesting, just on the first day, that we would be voting on these things, but for example, we did a real brief review of the financial health of the 40 different colleges, one of which, by our own definition, for 3 of the last 4 years has been within 10% of our own definition of being at risk of survival, quote survival. And that didn't Well, I mean, the definition of a 1.0 or less composite financial index score calls into question the, right, but the definition of it is that a score of 1.0 or less calls into question the institution's ability to carry out existing programs and survive. My only point is there are probably a couple of things that should be discussed and may have been discussed at the meeting that I missed in November, probably were because there was a budget review of some kind. I'm curious to see how the board, in the matter of a couple hours, chooses priorities. And I do probably have, and maybe Regent Guild has as well, more of a mind for the financial side or the long-term strategic side. But these two things, the potential well-being with a couple red flags on major institutions not getting any attention, and then us voting on things that, even if I'd have reviewed, to Regent Gill's point, I'm not sure that I would understand, but I should review moving forward.
Regent Duckett.
I've been here, I'm going on my third term as well. There are processes in place. Number one, we have the staff. Number two, we have the committees. Number three, we have the committee chair meetings. Number four, we have this meeting. So to put in context how we are able to efficiently conduct business today in such a concise time frame is because we've had all of those meetings leading up to this meeting. I am the lawyer for a $3 billion corporation. We have 18,500 employees. Our board meetings take roughly 2 to 3 hours, and we currently meet 8 times a year. We are considering moving to 4 times a year. So the work gets done in your committee structure. The committees report out to the board. So I go back to my earlier comment that the process provides you with as much information as you need, and if you don't have enough information, you can always pick up the phone and call to get more information. That's your right and responsibility as a board member. But if we need to modify the process, have more committee meetings or whatever, fine, I'm happy to do that. But let's not cast aspersions on where we are today without looking at the total picture. That's my only ask.
Thank you all. We do really have to move on, Regent
I
Hill.
agree with that.
Okay, thank you. We really do need to move on. It has been an interesting discussion. I will say though, and putting my vice chair hat on, one, we can always be more strategic, and I believe much of our discussion that we had earlier today was very strategic in nature. But number two, as well as this group gets along, I never want you to think this is a go-along to get along group. And in the 10 years I have been on this board, to Regent Varlin's point, we have made great strides in asking the tough questions and questioning each other and always being respectful, but we are all mindful of the bottom line and hopefully the value add as board members that we do make to the system. So with that and with everyone's permission, I would like to move on and ask for a motion to approve the learning support policy for the TCATs, please. Thank you, Regent Prescott. Thank you, Regent Varlin. Any further discussion? I'm almost hesitant to ask. All in favor? Oh, Regent Goldsmith.
Can I just make one comment? I think the problem maybe that Mark is seeing with this, it's not framed as part of our strategy. As a faculty member, seeing that we have a floor for TCAT in terms of as an open access institution and as our community colleges open access institutions, how you decide how students come through that open door and how they move through and then in some instances transfer from TCAT over to the credit side, that's part of the overall strategy. And I view this policy as one of a series of policies that we are framing that policy. Because otherwise, if everyone is determining how they're going to manage a student coming in that has deficiencies, you're not going to have any ability to move people through other parts of the system and maintain that as a real open access institution. So I think maybe, Mark, to me, it sounded like it wasn't framed to you as strategy worthy of the board. It was just a policy that came in front of you that you never heard of before.
That's helpful. Message matters, communication matters. Thank you. If there are no further comments, all in favor of approving the policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Dr. Hamilton, let's look at this AOT degree.
Okay. I would like to take just a couple of minutes and provide a little bit of an informational background, and then I will ask Chancellor Tidings if she has some words that she would like to say, and then Dr. McCormick. So I think it's going to take three of us to really talk about the Technical College AOT degree program. We know, if we talk about our institutions, the 13 community colleges and the 27 TCATs, we have what we call institutional regional accreditation agencies. So for the community colleges, Dr. Apple, I'm going to go back to your analogy. For the community colleges, our 13 community colleges are accredited through our SACs, our Southern Association of Colleges and Universities Commission on Colleges, SACs. Now you know why we use the term SACs. We also know that the 27 technical colleges are regionally, institutionally accredited through COE, the Council on Occupational Education. So we think about these regional accreditations and the institution accreditation. So as we peel off that layer at the institution and we dive down into the academic programs, we have certain academic programs who also have discipline-specific accreditations. And so a few examples include, like nursing has a discipline-specific accreditation. So the college is accredited through either SAC, COC, or the COE. And then we also have nursing programs, physical therapy assistant programs, respiratory care programs, and those programs are accredited at the discipline level. Well, we have had a change and are working through a change with one of our discipline-specific accreditors. And this specific discipline accreditor focuses on our surgical technology program. So we started very broad to talk about SACs and COC, so let's narrow down the conversation to look at one discipline within our system, and that is surgical technology. So there have been some changes made at that discipline level accreditation agency. And currently within our system, we have 6 TCATs who offer a diploma in surgical technology, and we have 4 community colleges that offer either a certificate or an associate of applied science degree program. So we'll fast forward just a little bit, and we stepped back and said, what can we do? Because at the end of the day, it's about our students and what's best for the students to make sure that they succeed and that we're meeting workforce development needs. And so there is an option within the TCAT system to deliver an Associate of Occupational Technology degree. Technical College AOT, Associate of Occupational Technology degree. And this would provide our TCATs, and it would be specific for those 6 institutions who deliver surgical technology, to offer surgical technology at the associate level. So Chancellor, that is very quick summary, but
yeah, let me talk about it from an industry perspective. What in essence, everything that Lana just said is the accrediting agency for surgical technology have now said that you cannot get a surgical technology degree without an associate degree. So in order to do that, our 6 colleges that offer this, we need to make a change so that they can offer an associate degree. Right now, the verbiage that is written at the state level says that our technical colleges have to offer degrees that are less than community colleges and universities. Well, we know our community colleges offer associate degrees. There is, in the academic world, a discussion that an AOT is less than an associate degree, so technically we might be okay with that, but I don't like being just technically okay with that. So what we are asking is that we change the verbiage and that we just take that out. that allows now these technical colleges, and we're just going to stop it at, they can offer associate degrees, technical certificate, and diplomas rather than lesser than a community college and a university. I called most all of you in the room and had this discussion with you because this is a complicated process that we have to do. It does have to be changed in the standard. It also has to go before the legislature for them to change it. When I talked with most of you, I explained to you that I've had discussions with Senator Dolores Gresham, Representative Mark White. They are in full agreement for this to happen. They have agreed to write the legislation and carry it forward. And let me back up just a minute. Before I made those phone calls to all of you, we had major discussions with those 6 campuses to make sure that we could do this. The win-win in it is that the courses that are required to make the Surge Tech diploma an associate degree are your English, math, psychology, your core courses that have to be taken. Our community colleges will be offering those programs. So it'll be a reverse articulation. So we're not adding new instructors at the technical colleges. We will do this with existing faculty and staff. It will reverse articulate back to the technical college, and they can then offer the degree. We had to also make sure that the faculty that were teaching in these programs all had the associate degree, and short of one faculty member, they all did, and that one faculty member has actually already started the groundwork to get her associate degree, so we're bringing all of those up to that same level. So I think we have put all of the bricks in place for this to happen. A piece of it is that we need for you to vote for approval on this today so that we can move it forward at the legislative end for them to pass it, and then we can go back and put this in place and go to the accrediting agency and say we are in compliance. We have until 2023 to put all of these pieces in place. My goal is to have all of this done by 2021. So does that, Kim, I probably went ahead and told your part as well because you were helping me deal with the legislators on this, but if that answers all the questions, or Kim, do you have anything you need to add to that? Are you good?
I'm good. This has been through the External Affairs Committee and committee chairs, and you've also vetted it with the presidents.
So again, trying to make sure that everybody understood what we were doing here and that this is not a, while it sounds like a drastic change, it's really sort of a small baby step change that we're doing so that we can offer our students an associate degree in Surge Tech.
And I'm just going to add, because I'm in a hospital setting, that this is really necessary. It's sort of like we're even trying, what's happened with BSNs. It used to be RN, and now hospitals getting into, no, we want BSNs. I mean, you've got to be able to react quickly because there's such great need for these things, and the hospitals just, we're not going to be doing any great service to people that need these folks unless we are able to handle this.
And just one more aside, just to let you know, we also started with the accrediting agency to make sure that this was going to happen, and they've already voted on it and passed it. We had a similar incident occur with our occupational therapy program, which they were going to begin to require a bachelor's degree. We spent a great deal of time not only at the state level but the national level, and we were able to kind of put that out of the way. That the accrediting agency came back and said, we won't do that now, we'll stick to the associate degree. But we were not able to do that with this particular accrediting agency. They have already passed, and this regulation this train's moving, so.
Kim, anything else?
So if there is no more discussion, we're here to ask for your approval to seek legislative change through the General Assembly to Code 4911-402 to allow this to occur.
Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you, Regent Prescott. A second. Thank you, Regent Green. Any further discussion? If not, sorry.
Let me just mention one thing because we had some discussion about this at the chair's meeting, and I've discussed this in the committee. I think the thing that is also important, it's very important for our students, but it's also important as a system to continue to look toward what this board has established as the vision of our colleges not being in competition with each other, but really being able to provide the services that are needed in those service areas. And I think that the staff has done a good job of ensuring that this time in terms of talking with the presidents as where these programs are, and also in the collaboration of the kind of general ed courses being taught from the community colleges. But I think it's important for us to remember that that's what our vision is as we move forward, because this may not be the last instance, and we don't want to create any kind of anxiety among our colleges. But I appreciate the work that the staff has done to do that in this particular case, and it seems to me that this is just to use the term value added and not a competitive kind of thing.
Well said, as always. It is collaboration and communication, so very important on both counts. If there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you both. And thank you, Chancellor. Chancellor, I will give the program back to you. We have a building naming request today.
We do, and is Dr. Essex with us today?
Okay.
He was unable to join. Okay, we had hoped he'd be with us. Dr. Tracy Hall and the naming committee at Southwest Tennessee request that the Nursing, Natural Sciences, and Biotechnology building on the Union Avenue campus be renamed the Dr. Nathan L. Essex Nursing, Natural Sciences, and Biotechnology building. This recommendation is to honor Dr. Essex, former president of Southwest Tennessee Community College. Dr. Essex was selected to serve as interim president in 1999 to oversee the merger of Shelby State Community College and the State Technical Institute at Memphis, which would later become Southwest Tennessee Community College. He was appointed president of Southwest Tennessee Community College in 2001. Dr. Essex served as the new institution's first president until he retired in 2014. During his tenure, he made a sizable contribution to the college, such as securing and funding for this particular building that we're talking about. Dr. Essex also secured funding to build a new library and a new academic building at the Macon Cove campus and the Whitehaven Center. President Essex envisioned a program that would better prepare Tennesseans for industrial positions. He responded by leading the effort to create the Industrial Readiness Training Program, which benefited over 1,000 Tennesseans by earning higher wages and better benefits. Dr. Essex received numerous awards in recognition of his contributions to education in the community, including the 2014 Downtown Vision Award by the Mayor of Memphis and the Downtown Memphis Commission for dramatically improving the west boundary of the medical district and downtown Memphis on Union Avenue. After retiring from Southwest Tennessee Community College, Dr. Essex was appointed President Emeritus. Because of Dr. Essex's numerous contributions to the students, the community he served, and the Board of Regents, I am pleased to bring this recommendation to name the Nursing, Natural Sciences, and Biotechnology building on the Union Avenue campus the Dr. Nathan L. Essex Nursing, Natural Sciences, and Biotechnology building.
Thank you. Regent Duckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to move approval of the renaming of the facility there at Southwest Community College after Nathan Essex.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Prescott. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the naming for Dr. Essex, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Dr. Hall? President Tracy Hall from Southwest, I believe you may have some comments for us about this. And please give Dr. Essex our best. We haven't seen him in a while.
I will. Thank you. Madam Vice Chair, Chancellor, members of the board, thank you so much for approving the renaming of our building in honor of Dr. Essex. As you heard all of his accolades, you know that you cannot talk about Southwest without talking about Dr. Essex. He laid a strong foundation for us, and I truly believe that we all stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us. And so any successes that we have today, we had to have a Dr. Essex that helped to pave that way for us. So we appreciate him. We are forever indebted to him and all of the work that he has done, and we thank you for this honor.
Thank you very much. Do you know when you'll do your ceremony yet?
Well, our 20th anniversary is next year.
Yeah, oh,
So we
yes.
have some activities planned, and so we do
Excellent.
plan to honor him with an event.
Excellent. That's great. I'm glad we got this done for you then.
Yes, I am
Thank you
as well.
very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you. We will now offer a resolution of appreciation for Regent Tom Griscom, who served with us, I think, since 2010. Danny and Tom and I came on at the same time, and I will call on Regent Duckett to do the honors, please, sir.
Thank you. It is indeed my pleasure to present this resolution. But before I read the resolution, I didn't know Tom before he came on this board, and I got to know him, and it's my honor to actually consider and call him a friend. That's the type of relationship that we developed here on this board. With that, let me read the resolution. Whereas Regent Thomas C. Tom Griscom was appointed by Governor Phil Bredesen to serve as the 3rd Congressional District Representative on the Tennessee Board of Regents in 2010, and was reappointed to a 2nd term by Governor Bill Haslam in 2011, and served with distinction, honor, and integrity for more than 9 years. And whereas his deep commitment to public higher education is underscored not only by his service on the Board of Regents, but also by his service at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, his alma mater. As the first holder of the West Chair of Excellence in Communications, and as a member of the board of the UC Foundation, the university's advancement and development arm. And whereas Regent Griscom's career has largely focused on public service in various forms, beginning as a journalist covering state and local government and politics for his hometown daily newspaper, the Chattanooga Free Press, continuing through his roles as press secretary and senior advisor for U.S. Senator Howard Baker, executive director of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, and special assistant to President Ronald Reagan, serving in the White House with responsibilities for communications, strategic planning, speech writing, public liaison in advance, and co-directing 2 summit meetings between President Reagan and Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev, and later as publisher and executive editor of the Chattanooga Free Times Press, which he successfully guided through the merger of 2 fiercely competitive rival newspapers into the digital age. And whereas in his farewell editorial upon retiring as publisher, he wrote that freedom comes through an informed public which will grapple with the multiple sides of an issue in the search for the truth. A declaration that emphasized his commitment to transparency and accountability in public affairs. And whereas he graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English in 1971 from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where he was a member of the Honor, Service, and Scholastic Society's Blue Keys, Scabbard and Blade, and Alpha Society, and where he served as editor of the student publication, the University Echo and the Moccasin, and whereas his dedication to community service and the betterment of his fellow citizens extended beyond education to such other civic endeavors as service on the boards of the Chattanooga Public Library, Read 20, which encourages reading to children for 20 minutes a day, Chattanooga's public television station, WTIC, as board chair of the River City Company, Chattanooga's nonprofit downtown economic development engine, and as a past president of Chattanooga Rotary. And whereas his many accomplishments in public service earned him not only UTC's designation as Outstanding Alumnus in 2007, but also the prestigious designation as one of the University of Tennessee's 100 Distinguished Centennial Alumni, which the UT National Alumni Association defines as 100 alumni who have excelled in volunteer, military, community, and public service, philanthropy, education, entrepreneurship, invention and discovery, and arts and entertainment. And whereas Regent Griscom has provided great leadership, wisdom, and acumen during his tenure on the board, especially as chair of the Board of Regents Audit Committee since 2011, and as a member of the Committee on External Affairs, Committee on Finance and Business Operations, and the Economic and Community Development Committee, keeping the focus on student success while helping to ensure that student tuition, taxpayers' appropriations, and donor contributions are protected and spent as state and federal law requires, and that risks are minimized. And whereas his dedicated service on the Board of Regents has also included countless hours of support and valuable advice to the system, its institutions, faculty, and students, including speaking at innumerable commencement ceremonies, convocations, groundbreakings, building dedications, and other celebrations. And whereas he faithfully believes that hiring the best possible leaders for our system and institutions is among the most important responsibilities of a regent, and therefore devoted his time and energy as chair of the Presidential Search Advisory Committees for Chattanooga State Community College in 2015 and 2017, Cleveland State Community College in 2013, Motlow State Community College 2018, and Northeast State Community College 2018, and additionally, as a member of the Search Committee for the Tennessee Board of Regents Chancellor in 2016, and for presidents at East Tennessee State University 2011, Roane State Community College 2012, Walter State Community College 2016, Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Knoxville 2018, and whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents system is a more efficient and respected system of higher learning because of his zeal and devotion to the success of our students, faculty, staff, alumni of the Regents institution. And now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents express its sincere appreciation to Regent Thomas C. Griscom for his years of service rendered and leadership afforded to the Tennessee Board of Regents system. And I move that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, sir. So you got me all choked up. Do we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? I think we have a few folks who want to speak, starting with Regent Hart.
Yes. One of the last sentences you said, in terms of that our system is a better place because of Tom Griscom, is absolutely true. It was a blessing for him to be appointed at the time that he was, although intimidating. When you look at his resume and Emily Reynolds' resume, and then I'm in with the three of them, it's like, oh my gosh. I didn't know, it's like there's a mistake here because the two of you are so accomplished, but I didn't know him either before he came, Regent Dudgett, but I am so grateful for the opportunity to have had him in my life and serving with him, because he was such a great example of someone who, if he says he's going to do something, he's going all out. And his complete focus of attention, no detail for him got by, as all of y'all probably know because he's calling you all the time. He really was an amazing regent. So just thank you, Tom Griscom.
Oh, beautiful. Well, Regent Prescott, please.
I don't want to just copy what Danny said, but what went through my mind is that when I met Tom and Emily Reynolds, it made me feel infinitely unqualified to be on this board. I thought, goodness gracious, to be among someone that has had those kinds of experiences. But Tom was also a prince of a guy, just such a kind person, but one that took the responsibility to heart, asked all the hard questions, did a lot of work, and I will really miss Tom and regret that he's not here today to hear this. But he's a person that I would have never met had it not been for this board. So congratulations, and I tell you, the board that he's going to be serving on is very lucky. I've already spoken with someone from Memphis that's going to be on that board to tell her to be sure and get to know Tom.
Good. Chancellor?
I do, and the only good thing for me is that he's not sitting here in the room today, or I will cry. I'm gonna cry anyway. Tom hired me twice, and he truly is the reason I'm in this job today. The counsel that he gave me when I was at Chattanooga State and the long conversations I had with him truly got me to this point, because as many of you I've shared with you before, I'd only been at the job at Chattanooga State for a year and a half, and in my mind that was unimaginable that I could apply for a job anywhere else, because that was not in my nature to do that. You stay in a job and you do it until people are ready for you not to do that anymore. But Tom helped me see that I had a different place that I needed to be, and so Tom, all I can say is I love you.
Aw. Well, I have known Tom Griscom longer than anybody in this room, since I was 24 years old. And we both worked. Not long. Exactly, thank you. And we both worked for Senator Baker together. And our paths would diverge for times and then come back together at times. And so this opportunity to work with him over these past 9 years or so has really been quite special. Robert Pepper said to me when we were sitting down at Jackson State starting that search the other day, he said, "Gosh, I'm going to miss that guy. He can ask such good questions and he thinks in such a unique way." And I thought that was such a great observation. And I hope from what we've learned from him, we can all continue that tradition of being thoughtful and asking the right questions, and on occasion even being a little mischievous from time to time, because we know that's in our friend as well. So we do miss him today. And to what Regent Prescott said, he and Marion are in the Washington, D.C. area. One of their sons, Will, had apparently always had a desire to go into law enforcement. And he is graduating this week from the Alexandria Police Department Academy. So we wish him many successes and much safety. But of course, Tom and Marion wanted to be with him this week. We do have a special surprise, but first we do have a motion and a second on the table. If there are no further comments, we will act on this with a voice vote. All in favor of approving our resolution to honor our friend, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Carol, let's cue up Tom.
If you're watching this video, it means that you passed the congratulatory resolution. Thank you. I know it was a close call and the last opportunity to wish me something in the years ahead. Since I'm unable to be with you today because Mary and I are in Northern Virginia attending our son's graduation from Police Academy, I did not want the moment to pass without a few words of response and reflection. So let's start with the magic of threes. During my time on the Tennessee Board of Regents, I've had the privilege to serve with three governors: Bredesen, Haslam, and now Lee. Each with different approaches and ideas, but all committed to improving public education in our state and building a strong workforce. Three of us came together on the board at the same time: Emily, Danny, and me. And I know my colleagues have had a great impact on TBR and will continue to do so. Morgan, Gregory, and Tidings, three chancellors who've led TBR during times of great change. It's been a pleasure to have been in more than the cheap seats during their leadership. And Flora, from the search committee at Chattanooga State to where you are today, our friendship lasts forever. And you have my phone number, so just give me a call at any time. learned from my mentor, Senator Howard Baker, that you try to avoid going down a path of mentioning names because someone is always left off. But I also have been known sometimes not to listen real well. So here I go. Sanja, you let no petty request from me go unnoticed or unanswered, and there always was a pleasantness in your voice. Russ Deaton, one of the best people I have known with data, its interpretation and application, but not manipulation. Glad you're here and keep going to those baseball games. Mike Batson, a steady hand overseeing the straight and narrow. Thanks for what you do and for your support and for your assistance to me as the Audit Committee Chair. Kim McCormick, you're a longtime friend and you're a great asset at TBR. And that goes along with the whole external relations team that you lead. Danny Gibbs, you'll no longer have to ask me if I have any more questions. I'm done. Rick Locker, a fellow professional journalist in the best sense. No fake news there. Welcome to the dark side where I've spent over half of my career. To the presence in the audience, some of whom I had the opportunity to lead or participate in your search processes, you make the trains run and work. And for all the other board members, past and present, thank you for your service. Senator Baker believes that public service, regardless of how it's performed, is an important part of our society. And I want a special call out to two people. I developed a deep and lasting friendship with Greg Duckett. We may have come from different political paths, but I believe we are an example of how friendships are built. Greg mentored this new regent almost 10 years ago, and to him I say, well done, Coach. And my friend Emily Reynolds. We've crossed paths on 3 different occasions, and each time's been even better. Thanks for your friendship over many, many years. We've had great adventures and maybe even positively impacted a few things along the way. But remember, hide the silverware. And yes, I'm wearing the same tie and jacket. True confession, it just works. So let me state once more the pleasure it's been to serve on the Board of Regents. Each of you is making a difference in the life of someone you probably will never meet, and that's okay. Thank you, and have a great meeting.
I repeat my line about mischief. When we first came to the board and were fortunate to go over to the executive residence one night, he approached me the next morning at the board meeting with the room full of people, including media, and said, Emily, the governor's office is called. If you'll return the punch cups from the buffet table, they won't prosecute. So hide this family silver when I come over to your own. Oh, Tom, we miss you. We love you. And Marion, and we look forward to our paths continuing to cross. We know they will in this great state. You made a big difference. Chancellor Tidings, you're going to make another tough announcement here.
I am. This is just a sad day for me. I also want to talk about Dr. Lynn Goodman, who is retired and left the building as of the end of November. While we're recognizing her service, I also want to talk a little bit about her past and the things that she's done. Dr. Goodman served for 32 years the state of Tennessee. Her career began in 1987 at Walter State Community College, holding various positions, and in 1994 she became the Assistant Vice President for Human Resources and Affirmative Action Officer. In 2001, she moved to Nashville to be the Director of Employee Development and Equal Employment Opportunity for the Tennessee Department of Human Resources. In 2007, she served as the Director of Training and Special Projects for the Tennessee Department of Safety. In 2008, she accepted the position to work with the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology at TBR. She has provided much assistance to that department, the technical colleges, and to the system as a whole throughout her 11 years of service to the board office. She has been a tremendous source of knowledge, support, and encouragement to me as well. And so in 2017, I asked her to serve as special assistant to the chancellor. I want to thank Lynn and tell her how much she's missed, not just by me, but by everybody that had contact her with on a daily basis. I think the presidents got together with Lynn last night and honored her as she left our system and gave them her phone number because that she knows that we'll need to continue to be able to call her as well. She did leave a big hole in our office, one that in order to divide her duties up, I had to give them to 7 different people across the system, if that gives you any indication of what all she did for our system. So, Lynn, I know that you're listening. She could not be with us today because she also has bronchitis, just like our Vice Chancellor does. So, thank you, Lynn, for all that you've done. And if there's anybody else that would like to make a comment today on behalf, I'm going to ask any of the presidents if there's anything that they'd like to say. I know you all recognized her last night, so I won't. Thank you.
Thank you all. Oh, she leaves a big hole in our heart too, because she's very special, and I always loved watching your relationship with her. That was really quite special. So we love you, Lynn, and you will be missed. But as you said, we've got her phone number, and we know where she lives. That's even better. That's right. That's right. And I'm so glad you guys had a chance to honor her last night. Thank you very much. Do you have any further announcements?
Just that the next meeting will be March 26, 2020 at the system office. This will be held following the SOAR Awards event on March 25th at the Doubletree Hotel, downtown Nashville.
Thank you, Chancellor. We have our surveys to complete quickly to the board. We'll assemble in the back of the room for our group photo. Thank you for a great morning and a very productive time. Happiest of holidays, and folks, we will be closing out 2019. Here's to an even more successful decade of 2020. Thank you all very much. Safe travels.
Oh, yeah.